Edgar Cayce predicted, in 2026, only 5 zodiac signs will be lucky. Here it is, a statement that is difficult to ignore. Edgar Cayce warned that in 2026, only 5 signs of the zodiac will be able to embark on the path to true happiness. This is not a romanticized assumption or a sensational headline. It is a direct statement from one of the most famous prophets of the last century. His predictions have always been distinguished by their accuracy and extraordinary depth, and now they are becoming a guide for those who seek to understand why these 5 signs will have access to a rare energy boost that will shape their destiny throughout the year. The year 2026 will be a period when inner strength, intuition, and the ability to take decisive action will be the key to personal triumph. Some signs will finally overcome a prolonged period of uncertainty, while others will discover new opportunities that previously seemed unattainable. That is why it is important to understand who will enter this exclusive circle and what changes await them. Today, you will learn which 5 signs will have the chance for unique achievements and why their path will be different from the rest. Before you begin, write your sign in the comments. This will allow you to see if you belong to the group indicated by Cayce's prophecy. And if these topics are close to your heart, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on further analytical reviews and new esoteric discoveries. Aries. In popular retellings of Edgar Cayce's prophecies, Aries is often placed on a par with those who seem to receive more opportunities than others in advance, but pay for it with a demand for courage and action. In this scenario for 2026, Aries appears as a person for whom the word happy is not tied to a random win, but to the ability to accelerate their own life to high speed without veering off the track. That is why the key theme for this sign here is not passive waiting for gifts, but a qualitatively different style of decision-making, discipline, and honest work with one's impulses. Aries in the media image of astrology is someone who starts first, gets excited quickly, loves directness, and cannot stand slow people. The strengths are obvious. At the right moment, a representative of this sign can tighten their belt, gather their will, say, "I'll do it," and not procrastinate. They are not afraid of competition, find excitement in difficult tasks, and easily inspire others with their energy. However, there is also a risk zone: impatience, sharp reactions, a tendency to rush first and think later, as well as a habit of evaluating results only by speed, not by long-term quality. In the 2026 version, linked to Cayce's symbolic prophecies, it is the balance between boldness and strategy that becomes the filter through which Aries either reaches a level of noticeable personal happiness or gets stuck in another wave of irritation and struggle. One of the key reasons why this sign is among the 5 conditional chosen ones in such a scenario is its natural ability to respond quickly to opportunities. Where others are still gathering information, doubting, and checking, Aries has already taken the first step, signed up, submitted an application, tested a new work format, and entered a new environment. The first trigger here is the speed of decision-making combined with a willingness to learn from mistakes rather than get discouraged. The second important mechanism is directness in communication. Representatives of this sign are often able to say, "I'm interested," "I want to try," "Let's work together," before others. And it is these simple phrases that can open doors to partnerships and contacts that bring systemic benefits rather than one-time luck. The third trigger is the level of physical energy. In this version of 2026, Aries, who ignores his body, cancels workouts, lives on coffee and snacks on the go, quickly notices that he has enthusiasm but no strength. Those who channel their fiery nature into regular exercise, the gym, running, walking, any kind of activity, suddenly find that their focus, speed of thought, and ability to keep large amounts of information in their head increase. In this scenario, it is the habit of releasing tension through the body, rather than through conflict, that becomes the foundation for a sense of happiness. More enjoyment of daily routines, less internal boiling, and fewer ruined relationships due to excessive harshness. The fourth practical mechanism concerns money. In popular astrological descriptions, Aries often makes impulsive purchases, easily maxes out their credit card in online stores, and does not always count small expenses. In this scenario version of 2026, the emphasis for them shifts in the other direction. Happiness is associated not only with income, but with a sense of control over financial flows. Simple actions, such as setting monthly limits, keeping short notes on expenses, and separating money for living from money for development, have a strange effect. Less chaos, less anxiety, more inner peace. Representatives of this sign not only earn money, but also see how their efforts come together into a clear picture. This is not about radical steps or risky investments, but rather about paying close attention to where your energy and resources go every day. The fifth trigger is the environment. It is important for Aries not just to be a strong loner, but to be among those who do not dampen, but rather enhance their enthusiasm. In this version of events, those representatives of the sign who choose to surround themselves with people who move, act, learn, and create have the best chance of feeling happy this year. This could be a professional community, a course, a work team, or a club based on shared interests. When Aries sees that others are not sitting still either, they are more likely to get involved, doubt less, and focus less on their own fears. On the contrary, an environment where there is a lot of passivity, complaints, and constant later works as a break in such a scenario. People of this sign begin to doubt, irritation builds up, and the feeling that the year is passing by only intensifies. The sixth important point is the style of communication with loved ones. A typical mistake of Aries is that they carry their work and combative tone into their personal relationships, expecting their loved ones to withstand any pressure. In the media picture of 2026, this style becomes a source of tension that can negate some of their professional successes. Their career is growing, but resentment is building up at home. In order not to ruin their chances for a happier period, representatives of this sign should consciously separate their modes, make it a rule to slow down when it comes to family, ask more clarifying questions, listen to the end, do not interrupt, and consciously lower the tone of their voice. This does not diminish their authority, but opens up opportunities for deeper support from those around them. A practical action plan for Aries in this version of the year is based not on abstract faith in luck, but on concrete steps. It is advisable to devote the first few months to reviewing your own directions, which projects are worth bringing to a logical conclusion, and which ones should be let go in order to free up resources for new ones. The rule that works well here is to choose one or two priorities and keep them in focus, rather than trying to do everything at once. In this scenario, the middle of the year is a good time to actively expand your network and try new ways of interacting, from changing your role in the team to moving to a different field of activity, if you've been wanting to do so for a long time. The final months can be used for consolidation, formalizing results, preparing for the next cycle, and reinforcing new habits that have already borne fruit. The habit of planning in short intervals is especially useful for Aries. Instead of distant abstract dreams about someday, it is better to formulate specific milestones for several weeks. What skills to improve, what tasks to complete, how much money to save, What meetings to initiate? In this format, the natural fiery energy of the sign is not dissipated, but works like a turbine. There is a clear task, there is a deadline, there is a sense of excitement. Each small victory reinforces the subjective feeling of happiness, because a person clearly sees how life is changing not by chance, but thanks to their own determined steps. The risks in this scenario do not disappear either. The biggest one is the temptation to step on the gas in everything at once: work, relationships, personal development, new projects. Such overload quickly leads to exhaustion, and a tired Aries becomes harsh, impatient, and critical of everything and everyone. In order not to ruin your chances, it is important to build periods of recovery into the year in a timely manner. Weekends without work, physical rest, time without gadgets, a change of scenery. The second risk is the desire to get quick results in terms of money and the temptation to engage in excessive financial adventures. In this version of events, it is much more useful for representatives of this sign to test new opportunities cautiously, with small amounts, relying on information and advice from competent people, rather than on emotional impulses. Another subtle point is the attitude towards failure. Aries reacts painfully to failure, easily flares up with a sense of injustice, and can abruptly write off a person or project after a single conflict. In a scenario related to Cayce's conditional prophecies, it is the ability to turn mistakes into material for growth that becomes the factor that distinguishes a simply active year from a truly happy one. If a representative of this sign learns to see a specific lesson in every failure and adjusts their strategy instead of fighting the whole world, their inner state will stabilize and their sense of self-empowerment will only grow stronger. In the media image of 2026, happiness for Aries looks like a combination of three things: a sense of moving forward, inner honesty with oneself, and respect for one's own limits. This sign gets especially bright opportunities where it allows itself to be bold but not destructive, active but not exhausted, straightforward but not aggressive. In such a scenario, Aries transforms the potential that legends associate with the prophecies of great mystics into very concrete results: new roles, more honest relationships, healthy financial habits, and a tangible, "I am finally happy with how I live." And it is precisely this subjective feeling of harmony with oneself and one's own pace that can be considered that special form of happiness that entertainment astrology attributes to Aries among the few signs of the year. Taurus. In 2026, for Taurus, the word happiness will no longer sound like an abstract dream of a perfect day somewhere in the future. It will begin to take the form of very specific events: stable finances without constant anxiety, a space where it will be comfortable to live and work, people with whom you will want to stay for a long time. In Edgar Cayce's prophecies, this sign is often associated with material power and the ability to build foundations, and it is this trait that will give it an advantage throughout the year. 2026 will not turn into a fireworks display of random gifts for Taurus, but it will gradually build the level of stability that they have long dreamed of, but have not always dared to work towards systematically. People born under the sign of Taurus will habitually steer a course toward reliability, comfort, and tangible results. They will strive to see the results of their efforts and love specific things: their home, their bank account, their habits, familiar routes, and trusted people. This recognizable stability will be both a strength and a test. On the one hand, Taurus will continue to be able to withstand pressure, bring things to a logical conclusion, and not abandon what has already been started. On the other hand, the tendency to stick with the familiar will create the risk of missing out on new opportunities that 2026 will push very insistently. They will continue to dislike haste, meet change with caution, and be suspicious of any sudden turns. But it is through this prism that their special path to happiness will unfold. January and February will not be a spectacular start for Taurus, but will be a period of internal review. They will begin to look more closely at how their daily life works, how much energy work takes, which expenses are really necessary and which just fill the void, who they want to see, and with whom conversation will turn into an exhausting marathon of complaints. Already in these months, the first important trigger will appear: the desire to put basic things in order. Taurus will increasingly postpone impulsive purchases, structure expenses, and begin to plan not somehow, but specifically. What to pay first, what to postpone, what financial obligations they cannot afford and no longer want to take on. This will not look like austerity, but rather a careful attitude toward resources, which will create a foundation for a more peaceful attitude toward the future. In March and April, they will feel the need to take care of their body and routine. Taurus will naturally appreciate everything that gives them a sense of physical comfort, but will often postpone lifestyle changes that require effort. In 2026, this attitude will begin to change. They will gradually introduce new habits, regular sleep, instead of staying up late with their phone in their hands, full meals instead of snacks, just to eat something, walks, yoga, swimming, or other activities that help relieve tension. This will become the second key mechanism. The more attentive Taurus is to their body, the more stable they will feel in all other areas. Energy will no longer sag in the middle of the working day, and small pleasures, delicious coffee, a favorite dish, pleasant fabrics, the smell of home, will begin to be felt more vividly. The third important trigger will be their attitude toward their own value. Throughout May and June, Taurus will increasingly think about how much their time and skills are really worth. If they previously agreed to conditions that were not entirely satisfactory just to avoid conflict, now they will initiate conversations about pay, boundaries, and the distribution of tasks. They will not make a scene or demand the impossible, but they will formulate their expectations more clearly. Where there is an opportunity to take on new responsibilities and receive fair compensation, they will seize the chance. Where the situation proves to be hopeless, they will allow themselves to look for other offers. For this sign, this will be a serious internal shift. Instead of silently putting up with everything that is thrown at them, they will plan their trajectory, and this is what will open the door to a more stable and pleasant financial level. July and August will reinforce the theme of surroundings. Taurus will begin to feel even more clearly who leaves them feeling warm and inspired after a meeting, and who leaves them feeling heavy and exhausted. They will gradually refuse to communicate with people who only drain their emotional resources, eternal victims of circumstance, chronic gossips, toxic acquaintances who feed on other people's failures. Instead, they will more often choose the company of those who develop, learn, build, and create. This is the fourth trigger, an environment that does not force them to justify their desires, but supports their desire to live better. In everyday life, this will manifest itself simply: different topics of conversation, a different mood, different plans for the weekend. Taurus will spend fewer and fewer evenings mindlessly scrolling through their feed, preferring live or high-quality online contacts that provide development or genuine relaxation. The fifth mechanism will affect the professional sphere. In September and October, this sign will be ready to take a step forward in their work. Take on a more complex project, master a new specialization, change the format of employment, stabilize the schedule, or conversely, allow themselves a more flexible regime if it suits them. They will cease to fear the word responsibility when they see that they can receive not only a workload, but also real benefits, recognition, money, interesting tasks. Where active action proves impossible, they will at least begin to build a long-term strategy, learning, accumulating, expanding contacts, so that they are not left without a choice at the right moment. Instead of waiting for ideal conditions, Taurus will work with what they have, consistently strengthening their position. At the same time, they will face several serious risks throughout the year. The first is a tendency to stick to old patterns simply because they are familiar. Taurus may resist, postpone conversations, and avoid decisions if they do not see a guaranteed result. If they continue to block any innovations, their chances of feeling true happiness will decrease significantly. To prevent this from happening, they will need to learn to take limited, calculated risks, not jumping into the void, but testing new formats in small steps. The second risk is excessive attachment to comfort, when any inconvenience will be perceived as a tragedy. Where Taurus chooses short-term comfort over long-term growth, they will miss opportunities. Therefore, it will be useful to get into the habit of asking yourself, will this really protect me in the future? Or will it just calm me down today? The sixth trigger will be related to how this sign says no. In November and December, it will come to understand that true stability comes not from total control, but from the ability to refuse what destroys inner balance. Taurus will learn to gently but firmly reject unnecessary obligations, refuse to agree to projects that bring neither development nor financial sense, and stop trying to pull those who are not ready to change. This filtering out of the unnecessary will free up space for what is truly important. A new job, partnership, hobby, or leisure activity that is fulfilling rather than exhausting. For this sign, this will be a big internal step, as they have often silently endured what they suffered from in order not to upset the system. A practical action plan for the year for Taurus will consist of a few simple but powerful habits. They will begin to plan their finances not in general categories, but in specific amounts. They will allocate a minimum stable percentage of their income to reserves and create a separate basket for education, entertainment, and large purchases. They will learn to pause before making large purchases, a day or two to check whether it is really a desire and not an attempt to drown out fatigue. They will periodically review subscriptions, regular payments, and small expenses that are no longer relevant. Several such reviews per year will create the impression that money is no longer slipping through his fingers, but remains under his conscious control. Another element of the plan will be working with information. In 2026, Taurus will no longer be satisfied with superficial knowledge. If he becomes interested in a new field, he will start looking for courses, lectures, and materials that will help him understand it more deeply. He will pay attention not only to how much he earns now, but also to how he can increase his value in the market through skills. This will apply to both their profession and everyday matters, from the ability to negotiate to basic financial tools, expense planning, and time management. Each new piece of knowledge will strengthen their sense of security and reduce their fear of the future. Home will play a special role this year. Living space will always be important to Taurus, and in 2026, it will become even more crucial. They will be busy renovating their interior, decluttering, repairing, moving, or simply changing small details that will create a feeling of freshness. Any investment in space, even small ones, will give them the feeling that life is becoming more orderly and therefore happier. It is important that these changes do not turn into a pursuit of status. The main criteria will remain comfort, practicality, and emotional warmth, rather than impressions for the eyes of others. Relationships will also form a separate line. Throughout the year, Taurus will realize how much the atmosphere in a couple or family will affect their well-being. They will talk more often about their needs, stop patiently swallowing dissatisfaction, and at the same time listen more to what is important to their partner. Simple things will become fundamental for them. Shared dinners without phones, honest conversations about money in the couple, agreements about everyday life, and support during stressful periods. If the relationship turns out to be hopeless, Taurus will have more courage to admit it and gradually look for a format in which he will not feel used or underappreciated. This will require courage, but it is here that the opportunity for deep personal happiness will open up. Throughout the year, they will need to be wary of another risk, getting stuck in a "I'll put up with it" mode. If Taurus continues to grit their teeth and agree to live in conditions that do not suit them, just for the sake of appearances of stability, then the feeling of a happy year will fade away. If they start to listen to themselves more carefully and honestly admit what no longer suits them, then all the other triggers will come together to form a complete picture. 2026 will bring a special kind of luck for Taurus. Not a big win, but a series of calm but strong decisions that will gradually change the quality of their life. They will strengthen their financial foundation, take care of their body, clean up their social circle, improve their qualifications, restore order at home, and learn to say no where they used to suffer. And the more consistently he moves in this direction from January to December, the more clearly he will feel that he belongs to the few for whom this year will bring not a random gift, but a deep, tangible, mature satisfaction with his own life. Gemini. For Gemini, 2026 will sound like a challenge. Will they be able to transform their restless curiosity and powerful mind not into chaos with hundreds of unfinished ideas, but into a source of concrete results and tangible personal happiness? When the name Edgar Cayce is mentioned, this sign will be most often associated with people who are able to pick up on the invisible signals of the times, trends, new opportunities, unexpected encounters, and waves of information. And while others are still hesitating, Gemini will already be reacting, adjusting their routes, reformatting their plans, and choosing a life option that offers more ease, freedom, and emotional comfort. This sign will always gravitate toward movement. Gemini will change topics, environments, work formats, and moods. But behind this changeability will lie a stable core, the need for lively interest. In 2026, this feeling will come to the fore. They will find it increasingly difficult to tolerate boring routines, meaningless meetings, conversations about nothing, and work that does not give them a sense of development. At the same time, it is this inner intolerance of dead situations that will become a springboard. Gemini will begin to translate their dissatisfaction into action. Instead of complaining, they will look for other company, other formats of learning, other channels of income. And this will be their advantage among those signs that will claim a special level of happiness. In January, Gemini will resemble a person standing in a large airport with several tickets in their hands. Various directions will open up before them. And the first month of the year will be the time when they begin to weed out the random. They will review their projects, social media pages, contacts in their phone, and information subscriptions. They will leave some chats, distance themselves from some acquaintances, delegate some tasks, or close them forever. This review will be the first important trigger. The less noise occupies Gemini's brain, the more space there will be for ideas that will truly bring joy and benefit. February will give them the feeling that the air is filled with new requests. During this period, Gemini will be more active in communication. They will write to people they have long wanted to meet, join professional communities, seek collaborations, and ask questions of those who have already achieved results in a field that interests them. They will send resumes, offer their services, and test new content formats if they are involved in media or creative fields. It is in February that they will form connections that will become a source of financial, informational, and emotional resources throughout the year. The second trigger for happiness will be the ability to take the initiative and be the first to make contact. March will force them to take a closer look at their own routine. Gemini will often forget about sleep, food, and rest if they get caught up in an idea. In 2026, this strategy will quickly fail. Information overload, feeling like their head is full, and they have no energy, nervous exhaustion. And here, discipline, which is not usually expected from Gemini, will come to the fore. They will begin to build simple frameworks: time for work, time for rest, time for study, time for silence. They will turn off notifications at certain times, take breaks, and introduce short detoxes from social media. The third trigger will be the ability to regulate the load on the nervous system. The better they do this, the more inner clarity they will have, and thus, decisions that will lead to tangible happiness rather than chaotic bursts. In April, Gemini will already see the first results of their micro-changes. Some new contacts will start to work. The first steps in learning will bring practical skills, and an orderly routine will reduce the feeling of chaos. It is during this period that they will think more often about what they want to achieve by the end of the year. They will formulate not abstract, become happy goals, but specific benchmarks. Reach a certain level of income, launch a project, complete training. Change the format of work, try living in another city, and improve their personal life. The fourth trigger will be the ability to translate their desires into clear formulations and tie them to a time frame, without turning life into an endless someday. May will push Gemini to actively move outward. They will participate more often in events, conferences, trips, webinars, and off-site meetings. It will be extremely important for them to change their surroundings: new streets, different interiors, new faces. Each such change will invigorate their minds and provide new material for decisions. The fifth trigger during this period is flexibility. Where others will be afraid of change, Gemini will, on the contrary, be inspired by it. And if they are not afraid to try a new work format, move to another team, launch an additional direction, or take up a foreign language, then it is in May that the foundation for the biggest breakthroughs of the year will be laid. June will focus on finances. Gemini will see their activity begin to translate into concrete money, but at the same time, they will risk spending it all quickly on emotional desires. They will want to buy experiences, gadgets, courses, and travel. The danger will be that without basic planning, their income will dissolve, leaving them with no sense of security. Therefore, the sixth trigger will be a new attitude towards money. Gemini will start to set aside a certain percentage, structure their expenses, and make simple rules for themselves. For example, analyzing where the main amounts went once a month. They will not deny themselves pleasure, but will begin to ask themselves, what I buy will really contribute to my long-term sense of freedom and stability. In July, the topic of relationships will come to the fore. Gemini will take a fresh look at the people around them, who inspires them, and who constantly drags them into drama, conflict, and emotional ups and downs. They will feel that they no longer want to waste time on relationships that are based on habit or fear of loneliness. They will ask themselves more honestly, Is there a future here? Or is it just inertia? During this period, they will learn to speak directly, but without destructive harshness. They will explain what they need, set their boundaries, and stop agreeing to a format of communication where their interests are ignored. The seventh trigger will be the ability to build mature, equal communication, not playing silent games, not manipulating, but speaking up and listening. August will reinforce the theme of personal branding. Gemini will feel that the world sees them in a certain way, active, witty, intelligent, but sometimes frivolous. They will begin to work purposefully on how they present themselves. This may manifest itself in the form of updating social media profiles, creating a portfolio, starting a blog, being active in professional communities, and a more thoughtful style of clothing, language, and behavior. The eighth trigger will be the realization that how they present themselves is how others will interact with them. The more structured, consistent, and responsible they appear in the public sphere, the more serious offers they will receive. In September, Gemini will face the need for deeper concentration. The year up to this point will already bring many events, and there will be a risk of spreading themselves too thin. To avoid this, they will choose one or two main directions and invest in them as much as possible. They will complete their educational programs, pay off old loans, and finalize projects that have potential. The ninth trigger will be the ability to finish what they start. This is what will distinguish Gemini, for whom 2026 will bring a sense of happiness, from those who remain in started but gave up mode. October will focus on the health of the nervous system. Gemini will notice that with an excessive amount of tasks, people, and impressions, their brain begins to protest. Irritability, insomnia, and fatigue from communication will appear. This month will push them to learn how to relax properly, not with the help of an endless stream on their phone, but through a change of activities, walks, silence, and creativity. They will look for formats that calm them down: music, books, nature, time alone. The 10th trigger will be caring for their own mental health. Where Gemini take care of themselves rather than burning out, their year will be more balanced, and their subjective sense of happiness will become more stable. In November, the theme of professional results will be particularly prominent. Gemini will reap the rewards of their activity: new clients, interesting projects, collaborations, income growth, invitations to participate in something meaningful. They will feel that their voice is being heard and that their ideas carry weight. It is important that during this period they do not rush into 10 new directions at once, but choose those that truly correspond to their values and long-term plans. The 11th trigger will be the ability to say yes, not to everything in a row, but only to what strengthens rather than disperses. December will be a time when Gemini will look back on the year and notice how much the quality of their life has changed. They will remember what they were like in January: scattered, overwhelmed, with a dozen open tabs in their head. And they will see that now there is more clarity, a clearer financial flow, deeper relationships, stronger professional positioning, and new useful habits. They will plan the next cycle, relying not on chaotic dreams, but on the experience of their own decisions. The 12th trigger will be an inner feeling. I will create my own happiness rather than wait for it to be brought to me. What could disrupt this path for Gemini throughout 2026 is the habit of perceiving everything that happens as a game with no consequences. If they continue to make promises and not keep them, join projects and disappear, agree to meetings and not show up, play with other people's feelings just for the emotional adrenaline rush, then any opportunities will quickly be blocked. Partners will lose trust, employers will reduce their role, and friends will drift away. To prevent this from happening, Gemini will have to mature in their communication, tell the truth, warn about changes in plans in a timely manner, and take responsibility for the roles they have taken on. The second serious risk will be escaping into information addiction. If Gemini choose endless scrolling through news, short videos, and superficial conversations instead of taking action, they will feel the year slip by without leaving any tangible traces. In this case, happiness will turn into quick bursts of dopamine rather than deep satisfaction with life. Therefore, 2026 will push them to create rules of digital hygiene for themselves, limiting time on social media, taking periodic breaks, choosing quality content instead of mindlessly consuming everything. This will not take away their lightness and curiosity, but will help make them an ally rather than an enemy. The third risk is the inability to resolve conflicts. Gemini easily get into arguments and love intellectual battles. But sometimes they will go further than necessary just to be right. If in 2026 they continue to defend their position to the last, without regard for other people's emotions, it will close many doors. On the other hand, if they learn to stop in time, acknowledge other people's points of view, and not turn every conversation into a battlefield, their relationships with those around them will become much warmer, and pleasant opportunities will become more accessible. When it comes to a practical plan of action for Gemini in 2026, it will not be built around one big event, but around a system of small but coordinated steps. They will review their priorities every month, refine their goals, cut out the unnecessary, and reinforce the useful. They will be more attentive to the information they allow into their minds, work on skills that really increase their value, and devote time to people who are easy and interesting to be around. They will learn to derive pleasure not only from novelty, but also from the results that this novelty will bring. As a result, in 2026, Gemini will have every chance to join the select group of signs for whom happiness will cease to be a pretty picture and become a living experience. Their happiness will not look like a frozen ideal frame. It will be dynamic. New acquaintances, interesting tasks, free movement, inspiring conversations, paths that will open up when they dare to say, "I'll try." And it is precisely because of this flexibility, the courage to think more broadly, and the willingness to work with their chaos, that they will be able to feel that 2026 will truly be a time when their nature will bring not only eternal movement, but also a deep sense of joy from how their lives are unfolding. Cancer. In 2026, Cancer will be one of the few signs for whom happiness will no longer be limited to a soft blanket and familiar walls. For Cancer, this concept will expand. In addition to security and home, self-respect, quality relationships, honest finances, and the feeling that they are no longer living up to other people's expectations will become increasingly important. In Edgar Cayce's prophecies, this sign is often associated with the depth of the inner world, and in 2026, it is this inner depth that will begin to work not against them, but for them. Cancer will stop hiding their needs in silence and will begin to build a life in such a way that their emotions are not a constant storm, but become a source of strength, intuition, and a keen sense of the right time. Throughout the year, Cancer will demonstrate its inherent traits in a new way. Its sensitivity will not turn into mere touchiness. It will increasingly become an ability to accurately read the atmosphere and catch nuances that others will miss. Their loyalty will not be confined to toxic relationships. Instead, they will seek and maintain only those contacts in which there is reciprocity and respect. Their desire to care will no longer look like extreme self-sacrifice. It will gradually change into healthy support without devaluing themselves. Weaknesses will also remain. He will be afraid of sudden changes, will try to hold on to the familiar even if it makes him unhappy, will often postpone direct conversations, and will spend a lot of energy on worrying rather than on action. It is with this internal conflict that Cancer will work throughout 2026. January will be a month of internal inventory. Cancer will review what has been dragging on from previous years: unfinished conversations, unforgiven insults, promises that have long since lost their relevance. He will remember people with whom communication was exhausting, situations in which he was used, scenarios where he remained silent when he wanted to say, "It hurts me." At this time, Cancer will begin to let go, sometimes literally, deleting contacts, leaving unnecessary chats, refusing to participate in projects that only kept them feeling guilty. This process will not be easy, but it will open up space for new opportunities for happiness. In January, he will also take the first steps towards structuring his life. He will tidy up his home, get rid of things associated with unpleasant memories, and renovate the space in which he lives. In February, Cancer will no longer be satisfied with just external order. He will try a different format of emotional behavior. Instead of withdrawing into themselves, they will more often dare to share their experiences with those they trust. They will practice the ability to talk about their feelings directly. "I am sad. I am scared. I need support. I am tired." This month, it will become clear who is truly capable of supporting them and who is only used to taking without giving anything in return. This will create the first practical filter. People who respond sincerely will remain in their inner circle. Those who devalue them will drift away. March will bring Cancer to the topic of work and self-realization. They will feel that they no longer want to live only for the comfort of others. Questions such as, "Am I in the right place? Am I really appreciated? Will my income grow if I stay here?" will sound in their head more and more often. In March, Cancer will begin to explore alternatives. They will look for other jobs, study opportunities for additional income, and take an interest in courses and programs that will help them change their field of activity or strengthen their current one. They will not quit everything on a whim, but will lay the groundwork for further steps, and this will already give them the feeling that they are moving towards a life with less powerlessness and more control. April will be the month when finances come to the forefront. Cancer will take a more sober look at their income and expenses. They will start keeping track of where their money goes and notice recurring patterns. For example, impulsive online purchases, regular spending on people who don't appreciate it, or attempts to eat away stress. During this period, they will set simple rules for themselves. Have a reserve for unforeseen situations. Don't spend every penny. Don't spend more than they earn. Cancer will analyze which purchases will really improve their quality of life and which will only fill emotional gaps. Instead of looking for quick, risky schemes, he will focus on stability, consistency, and increasing his value as a specialist. May will be associated with relationships and social circles. Cancer will begin to feel more clearly where he is really needed and where he is just playing the role of a convenient person. They will no longer agree to a format of communication where they are being used. In May, they will set boundaries more often, refusing meetings that leave them feeling exhausted, ending communication with people who constantly intrude into their lives with complaints, criticism, and manipulation. Instead, they will gravitate towards those with whom they can talk honestly, laugh without tension, and plan for the future without fear. It is in May that friendly and working alliances can be formed, which will become a strong support for the whole of 2026 and beyond. In June, the theme of home will take on a special significance. Cancer will strive to make their space not only cozy, but also functional. They will plan minor updates or more serious changes, rearranging furniture, organizing their workplace, possible repairs, and sometimes even moving to a more comfortable home. People of this sign will create an environment around themselves where they can not only relax, but also work, create, and learn effectively. If in previous years their home was more like a fortress where they hid from the world, in mid-2026, this space will increasingly resemble a base from which they will venture out into the world with greater confidence and to which they will return with pleasure. July, when the energy of this sign traditionally intensifies, will emphasize personal courage. Cancer will face a choice, either to stick to old patterns of behavior, where they agree to less than they deserve, or to finally declare their true desires. This month, they may initiate conversations that they have been putting off for years, about a promotion, about changing conditions, about what they are unhappy with in their relationships, about internal conflicts that they have been carrying within themselves for a long time. It will not be easy for him, but every honest dialogue will bring relief and open up new options for development. July will also encourage him to take care of his body, regular checkups, attention to the body's signals, and prevention will become a real priority rather than a formality. August will be a reminder to rest. Cancer will accumulate enough emotional, mental, and physical stress throughout the year, so it will be important for them to allow themselves to recharge during this period. This does not necessarily mean expensive trips. Even short trips, a few days by the water, a change of city, or at least a change of neighborhood, walks in a different environment will have a strong effect. Cancer will learn to let go of control for at least a few days, not to check their email every hour, not to think about problems that do not require immediate solutions. They will feel how a new level of clarity comes with their return, and with it, fresh ideas and a calmer attitude towards what previously seemed critical. September will force them to return to the topic of professional development. Cancer will see that the year is not standing still and will begin to assess their status more coldly. Will their chances for a better position grow if they don't change anything? Are they ready for a new level of responsibility? What skills do they still need? In September, they may make decisions about training, long-term or short-term intensive courses that will give them the tools to move to another level. They will read more applied books, watch specialized materials, and consult with those who have already gone down the path they are interested in. All this will create the feeling that he is not just working somewhere, but consciously shaping his own professional profile. October will highlight the issue of work-life balance. Cancer may feel that if they focus only on their career, their emotional life will suffer, and vice versa. The task for this month will be to establish a routine that includes time for earning money, for loved ones, and for themselves. They will learn to plan meetings with friends, time with family, and personal hobbies as responsibly as work tasks. This approach will reduce the risk of burnout and put happiness on a broader footing, where there are not only financial indicators, but also warm moments, shared memories, and small joys that fill everyday life. November will highlight all the weak spots. The things that Cancer has been putting off will remind them of themselves. Unresolved conflicts, uncertain statuses in their personal life, and unbearable obligations. During this period, they will be forced to make a choice. They will either continue to live in limbo or begin to resolve issues one by one. This may be a decision to end a relationship that is not developing, to refuse cooperation based on manipulation, or to change the direction of income that leads to emotional burnout. Such steps will usually scare Cancer, but they will open the way to a cleaner, more honest, and happier space in life. December will bring together the results of everything they have done throughout the year. Cancer will look back on their path and notice that not only the external plot has changed, but they themselves have changed as well. They will react more calmly to uncertainty, cling less to those who do not appreciate them, pay more attention to their health and rest, and manage their money more wisely. They will see that their home has become a place where they truly feel good, that work is not only a source of fatigue, but also of self-respect, and that their social circle has become cleaner, deeper, and warmer. On this path to happiness in 2026, Cancer will face several serious risks. The first is the habit of hiding from action. If they choose to remain silent instead of speaking up, to endure instead of changing, to accumulate resentment instead of solving problems, then no potential opportunities will be able to turn into a real breakthrough. The second is the temptation to live in the past. If Cancer constantly returns to old, painful situations in their thoughts, turns them over in their mind, compares the present with the past, they risk losing their taste for today's opportunities. The third is excessive concern for others at the expense of oneself. If they continue to put the needs of others first, leaving themselves with crumbs of time and attention, it will inevitably lead to internal exhaustion. To avoid these pitfalls, Cancer will learn a few key practices. He will begin to ask himself questions before making important decisions. Is this really what I want? Or am I just afraid of disappointing someone? Will this step bring me closer to a life that I enjoy? Am I betraying myself right now? They will practice a new behavior model, making fewer automatic promises, not agreeing the first time if they feel internal resistance, taking a pause to hear their own voice. They will implement small but systematic actions for themselves. Time for hobbies, small purchases that bring joy, walks, conscious pauses in the information noise. In 2026, Cancer's happiness will not look like accidental luck, but like the result of a new position. He will cease to be a shadow that quietly holds everyone and everything, and will become a person who honestly builds his life, his relationships, his finances, his inner reality. They will allow themselves more than before, dreams of a different level of life, attempts in new areas, relationships where they are loved, not just tolerated, and work that does not exhaust them to the point of exhaustion. And the more courageously he moves along this trajectory from January to December, the more clearly he will feel that he belongs to those few signs that people will talk about. In 2026, they will truly get their chance at special, deep, human happiness. Leo. 2026 will bring Leo to the forefront, not only in terms of career or publicity, but above all in terms of their own sense of power and right to happiness. Where previously they would agree to shine in flashes, occasionally coming out on stage and then hiding behind their duties again, the new year will constantly push them to declare themselves loudly, maturely, and systematically. For this sign, the central theme will not be random luck, but a conscious leadership position. Leo will not ask for permission to be noticed. He will begin to live as if his natural charisma is a working tool, not a decorative option. Leo's profile this year will have clear contours. It will move forward when it feels attention and respect, and slow down when it encounters indifference. Its strengths will be particularly evident. The ability to inspire, to make decisions where others hesitate, to create a festive atmosphere around itself, confidence in its own taste, and the ability to maintain high standards. At the same time, their weaknesses will not disappear. Self-love, touchiness, the need for constant admiration, a tendency to dramatize, impulsive spending on status, and a tendency to postpone systematic work if it does not bring immediate admiration. It is along these extremes that the line will be drawn between a year that Leo will experience as truly happy and a year in which he will once again play the role of king without a kingdom. In January, Leo will start with a sober look in the mirror. He will frankly assess how much his current lifestyle corresponds to his inner level. This is not about pathos, but about basic things. Whether he is truly respected in the environment where he works, whether there are people around him who see him as more than just a convenient performer, whether his lifestyle, clothing, and communication reflect the sense of dignity that is inherent in Leo. This month, they will clear the field. They will close outdated commitments and refuse to take on the responsibilities of others, which bring neither growth nor joy. January will be the starting point when Leo will recognize that they have the right to live more brightly than they have allowed themselves to do so far. February will reinforce the theme of confidence in their own competence. Leo will look at their talents not as a natural background, but as capital. They will begin to look at themselves through the eyes of an employer, client, or partner. What is unique about them? What they can be confidently paid more for? What tasks they are really capable of? And where they are simply used to dragging so that everyone is satisfied? During this period, Leo will increasingly take the initiative. They will propose new formats for cooperation, talk about promotions, and declare their readiness to take on projects that others are afraid to tackle. At the same time, they will begin to abandon the role of the silent hero who does everything but remains in the shadows. March will reveal the theme of charisma and publicity. Leo will have opportunities to become more active in the public sphere, launching their own pages, channels, blogs, and speaking more often at meetings, forums, and online. Where he used to be shy about appearing too bright, in March, he will begin to realize that his natural expressiveness is not unnecessary decoration, but a magnet for opportunities. He will pay attention to his speech, gestures, visual image, and presentation of his ideas. This will be a month when any work with the public, from presentations in the office to personal broadcasts, can bring not only likes or applause, but also specific contracts, partnerships, and offers. April will shift the focus from the external to the internal. Leo will begin to more strictly distinguish sincere praise from manipulation. Where people used to stroke his mane to get benefits, he will suddenly see their true motivation. This will become one of the key triggers of happiness. Leo will stop wasting their energy on those who feed them empty promises and instead invest in real mutual alliances. They will be more attentive to gestures of support rather than loud words. In April, he will also need to put his emotional reactions in order. Fewer scenes, more constructive conversation, fewer demonstrative insults, more specific demands and agreements. May will open up the topic of money as a continuation of self-respect. Leo will rethink his financial habits. Does he really need every status symbol? Is it worth participating in all the expensive entertainment? Or is it easier to get organized and set strategic financial goals for himself? He will begin to ensure that his income grows not only through random bonuses, but thanks to the clearly defined value of his work. Decisions will be made to raise rates, change the format of cooperation, and search for new markets where his talent will be valued more highly. At the same time, he will be more restrained in his impulsive spending. Not because he will stop loving beautiful things, but because he will learn to distinguish what is truly valuable from what is bought just to look good. June will lead to the topic of body and energy. Leo will begin to realize that if he wants to keep up the pace, he needs to take care of himself on a different level. This month, decisions about routine, sports, and nutrition will become more active. He will choose activities that allow him to feel strength in his body, not just fatigue. This could be the gym, dancing, swimming, running, strength training, anything where they can see the results in the mirror and feel it in their energy. The better their connection with their body, the easier it will be for Leos to keep up with the intense schedule of the year, and the less they will react to minor provocations from those around them. July will reveal the theme of the heart. Leo, who is used to being the center of attention in his personal life, will begin to take a fresh look at what relationships truly make him happy. At this time, there may be situations where they will rethink their approach to love, from relationships for status to relationships for intimacy, from a romance that looks good in the eyes of others to a relationship based on respect and security. Leo will be more honest with themselves about whether they get inspiration from their partner or are constantly playing a role to maintain appearances. July will give them the courage to demand a different quality of reciprocity and to reject scenarios where only the facade shines, but inside is empty. August will create a feeling of peak activity. For many Leos, this will be a time when many events coincide: work tasks, trips, meetings, important conversations, public appearances. This month, Leo will have the opportunity to demonstrate the full extent of their abilities: organizational, creative, and leadership. They will negotiate, form teams, agree on partnerships, and launch projects that they have been planning for a long time. At the same time, it will be especially dangerous to lose a sense of proportion in August. There is a risk of taking on too much, promising more than you can actually deliver. In order not to lose control, it will be important for Leo to consciously cut out the excess, not to agree to all requests just because they sound good. September will raise the question, what next? When the first wave of exciting events subsides, Leo will be forced to think about structure. This month, they will begin to systematize what has been done, putting agreements on paper, formalizing collaborations, forming long-term contracts, and implementing regular processes where they previously worked on enthusiasm alone. He will pay attention to documents, the legal framework, and protecting his own interests. Those Leos who are not too lazy to formalize and structure their successes in September will have a much calmer end to the year. October will touch on the topic of reputation. Leo will notice how people talk about him, how he is presented, and what stories circulate around his name. This will force him to monitor what he does and how he does it more carefully. Promises and deadlines, ethics in financial matters, attitude towards partners, communication style in conflicts. All this will begin to work as a cumulative effect. If Leo behaves responsibly, his name will serve as a recommendation, opening doors and attracting offers. If, on the other hand, he allows himself to indulge in royal whims without responsibility, breaking agreements, emotional scandals, demonstrative demarches, October will be the moment when some of his contacts simply begin to close. November will bring deeper layers to the surface. It is during this period that Leo will rethink his inner motives. Why does he need all these victories, new things, attention, status? Do they really fill the inner needs that he so jealously hides? They will begin to recognize that behind the desire to be, first lies the desire to be loved and accepted. Behind the appetite for luxury lies the fear of being vulnerable and defenseless. Behind loud laughter lies the need to be taken seriously. November will be a time of inner work when Leo, allowing himself honest conversations with himself, will be able to change many deep-seated scenarios. December will bring the summary result of the whole year, but not in the form of an academic report, but in the format of a very personal feeling. Am I living at my level or not? Leo will look around and assess. Are his days really filled only with the struggle for survival, or has he already switched to a mode of creation? Are there people in his circle whom he can rely on, or is he still surrounded by random consumers of his energy? Do his activities bring him not only numbers in his account, but also a sense of significance and pride in himself? If he consistently takes advantage of the opportunities that each month brings throughout the year, December will be the time when Leo allows himself to say, "Yes, this year feels meaningful." The risks for Leo in 2026 will be serious. The first is overestimating his own personality at the expense of underestimating discipline. If he decides again that charisma will pull everything together and that consistency is a matter for little people, then the year will bring more high-profile starts than real results. The second risk is the habit of reacting to any criticism as a personal insult. If Leo continues to perceive comments as an attack on his ego, he risks losing mentors, clients, and partners who could be a springboard to a new level for him. The third risk is uncontrolled spending. If he does not introduce at least minimal financial discipline, money will come and disappear just as quickly, leaving no foundation, which suits this sign perfectly. Leo can avoid these pitfalls through a few key habits. He will begin to teach himself to respond to criticism not emotionally, but analytically, to separate the constructive from the toxic, to take from feedback what really helps him grow, and to discard what is simply a projection of other people's complexes. They will remind themselves that greatness is manifested not only in grand gestures, but also in the ability to admit mistakes, apologize, and correct course. In financial matters, they will implement simple rules, set aside part of their income, plan large purchases, avoid spending in emotional moments, and keep at least basic records. In relationships, he will learn to hear not only compliments, but also the real needs of those around him, to lower his tone where he used to raise it, and to engage in dialogue instead of demonstrative pauses. Leo's happiness in 2026 will not look like a random jackpot. It will be formed from a series of steps, the courage to move from the background to the main stage of one's own life, the willingness to work not only for impressions, but also for results, the ability to remain generous without allowing anyone to take advantage. The Leo who, step by step, uses the potential of each month, from January's honesty with themselves to December's mature confidence, will have a very real chance to feel that 2026 has become a time not just of bright moments, but of deep, well-founded, adult satisfaction with their own path. Virgo. The coming year will not be a quiet backdrop for Virgo, against which she will simply work through her tasks. It will turn into a large-scale test of her consistency, logic, and ability to turn small steps into big results. Where other signs will rely on chance, Virgo will show in 2026 how precise calculation works. Thoughtful actions, attention to detail, the ability to spot an opportunity in time that may not even seem like an opportunity to anyone else. That is why she will be among the select few who are considered truly lucky. Her success will not seem like a gift from heaven, but rather the logical result of very clear decisions. Virgo's character combines self-discipline, the ability to maintain concentration for long periods of time, and a desire for order. In 2026, all these qualities will become active tools. She will see what others ignore: weaknesses in plans, uncalculated risks, hidden costs, unfavorable conditions. At the same time, vulnerabilities will remain. A tendency towards self-criticism, fear of mistakes, and excessive perfectionism, which can slow down the start when it's time to act. Virgo will often take on too much responsibility and feel guilty if something doesn't go according to plan, even if it's not within her control. The task of the year will be to learn to allow herself the right to make mistakes without lowering her high standards. January will force her to look at her life as a project that is long overdue to be tackled professionally. Virgo will draw up her own map of the year. She will write down which areas require immediate change and where she can wait and see for now. She will review her work commitments, list of clients or partners, income and expenditure structure, health status, and workload. At this time, the first key decision will emerge. She will no longer work by inertia. If something does not bring either development or adequate financial return, Virgo will begin to prepare the ground for correction. She will set new time management rules for herself and test planning formats, weekly reviews, daily checklists, and recording the 3 most important tasks for the day. This will allow her to feel like the captain of her own ship rather than a cog in the wheel starting in January. In February, the focus will shift to professional efficiency. Virgo will carefully analyze how she spends her time, where she will really create value, and where she will simply put out other people's fires. She will see which processes can be optimized: automation of routine tasks, templates for repetitive actions, delegation of part of the work that does not require her analytical depth. During this period, she will more often ask questions to management or partners. What results are expected of her? What metrics are important? Where there is room for growth? A logical step would be to review her status, ask for a promotion, move to another level of responsibility, or look for a new position where her competence will be valued much higher. This is where the first powerful trigger of happiness will come into play. The realization that her intellect and systematic approach will be rewarded not on a residual basis, but according to their real value. March will open up the topic of health and resources. Virgo will already feel that a lot will depend on her performance, and therefore it will become dangerous to neglect her body. She will draw up a schedule of examinations, normalize her sleep, and introduce clear breaks in her work. New habits will appear: water instead of endless coffee, full breaks instead of snacks at the laptop, regular walks, simple exercises for the back, eyes, and joints. If she previously put off taking care of herself until later, in March, she will begin to treat it as an investment. The second trigger will be the realization that her brain will work best when her body receives proper care. This will directly affect her income level, the quality of her decisions, and her ability to handle complex projects. April will bring the topic of money into sharp focus. Virgo will take a detailed look at her own financial flows. She will create spreadsheets, use apps, and introduce structure: mandatory expenses, savings, development, reserves, and pleasures. The third trigger will be the introduction of clear rules: a minimum percentage for a safety cushion, fixed limits on non-essential purchases, and a conscious approach to credit products. She will abandon the idea of plugging the hole with other people's money and instead build a system where every hryvnia or euro has its own purpose. It is in April that Virgo can pay off old debts, review contracts, negotiate better terms, and abandon financial issues that have kept her in suspense. May will highlight relationships and communication. Virgo will take a fresh look at colleagues, partners, friends, and loved ones. She will notice where her desire to help has turned into a role of free service. This month, she will learn to speak differently. Less criticism for the sake of criticism, more precise wording that gets results. The fourth trigger will be a new format of communication. Instead of passive dissatisfaction, clear requests instead of silent resentment, specific agreements instead of the habit of doing it yourself because others don't know how. Training, instructions, and division of responsibilities. This will free up time and reduce stress, while also improving the quality of her interactions with people. In June, Virgo will increasingly think about her own expertise. She will see that the world needs specialists who are deeply knowledgeable about a subject and can create systematic solutions. This sign will begin to invest in training, courses, certifications, mentoring programs, participation in professional communities. The fifth trigger will be the one key competency per year strategy. Virgo will choose the direction in which she wants to reach the next level and will work hard on it throughout the year without getting distracted. This could be analytics, management, a new language, digital tools, or a narrow niche in their field. In June, they will lay the foundation that will bring noticeable results closer to the end of the year. July will emphasize the theme of personal boundaries. Virgo will grow tired of the role of a universal soldier who can fix everything and calculate everything. She will begin to more often refuse additional tasks that are not paid or do not make sense for her development. The sixth trigger will be the ability to say no without feeling guilty. She will set time limits for communication, will not respond to work messages at any time, and will stop automatically agreeing to other people's requests just because it's more convenient for everyone. This new position may initially cause surprise among those around her, but will quickly earn her more respect. In August, Virgo will receive the first clear signals that the chosen tactics are working. She will see changes in her income, in the tasks entrusted to her, and in the tone with which she is addressed. Her analysis will be valued, her recommendations will be implemented, and her name will begin to be associated with quality. At this time, she will be able to more boldly enter new markets, try her hand at larger-scale projects, and agree to public roles, speeches, participation in conferences, conducting training programs, and consultations. The seventh trigger will be the formation of a personal brand. Virgo will more clearly define how she differs from other specialists, how she works, and what results she brings to clients or employers. September will return to the theme of life structure as a whole. Virgo will analyze how her energy is distributed between work, family, personal time, and leisure. She will notice imbalances and correct them. If her career has begun to consume everything except sleep, Virgo will implement specific changes: weekends without work emails, evenings for loved ones, and separate time for her own interests. If, on the contrary, she has delayed the implementation of her plans, September will be the month when she will focus on completing key tasks. The eighth trigger will be regular personal reviews. Once a month, she will set aside time to assess whether she is moving in the direction she has decided on, or whether she has been distracted by other people's goals. October will unexpectedly bring emotional stability to the forefront. Virgo will notice that even the best plans will fall apart if she allows anxiety to dictate her decisions. This month, she will focus on practices that will ground her: a clear schedule, physical activity, limiting information noise, working with her fears through a journal, therapy, and deep conversations with those she trusts. The ninth trigger will be the habit of not spinning negative scenarios in her head, but immediately translating emotions into action. If she is afraid of losing her job, she will strengthen her expertise and contacts. If she is worried about finances, she will look for additional sources of income instead of lying awake at night in a panic. November will lead her to profound conclusions about her own value. Virgo will realize that for years she has been setting the bar too low for herself. She has settled for normal when she could have aspired to excellent. During this period, she may make some life-changing decisions: change the company that is holding her back, switch to a format where she can manage her own schedule, leave a partnership that relies solely on her resources, restart personal relationships in which her efforts have gone unnoticed. The 10th trigger will be the willingness to act based not on fear, but on inner self-respect. December will end the year, but for Virgo, it will look more like a starting point for the next cycle. She will count not only money or the number of projects, but also internal achievements. How much calmer, more confident, clearer in her formulations, and more resistant to the chaos of others she has become. They will notice how they doubted themselves at the beginning of the year, but now they can defend their position even in difficult negotiations. They will see that their habit of thinking through the details has turned into a tool that has brought concrete results, from financial growth to improving the quality of life at home. The year will also have dangerous twists and turns. The first risk will be that Virgo may trap herself in perfectionism. If she demands perfect decisions in every little thing, fears imperfect steps, and postpones action until everything is perfectly calculated, her chances of happiness will diminish. The world in 2026 will move quickly, and therefore her ability to launch a project with sufficient, rather than all possible, information will become critically important. The second risk is the tendency to do everything on her own. Virgos will be skilled at many things and will often do better than others. But if she does not learn to delegate and controls every step of everyone around her, her nervous system will not be able to cope. The advantage of the year will be on the side of those Virgos who realize that smart control is not total, but selective. Where there is trust and clearly defined rules, there is no need to stand over people's shoulders. The third risk is the inner critic. If Virgos allow themselves to think every day that they are not smart, experienced, successful, beautiful, young, or disciplined enough, then any achievements will seem insufficient to them. This will kill the joy of progress and create a feeling of eternal pursuit. In 2026, it will be especially important to learn to record even small victories. A completed project, a successful day without breakdowns, a new habit, additional income, a calmer reaction to a difficult situation. To fully utilize the potential of the year, Virgo will form her own practical code. It will include discipline, but without fanaticism, ambition, but without self-destruction, and exactingness, but without devaluing herself and others. Step by step, she will build a life where knowledge is converted into money, consistency into stability, attentiveness into accurate decisions, and inner modesty into dignified confidence. Thus, in 2026, Virgo will be among the 5 signs that everyone will be talking about. They are the ones who will get the most out of this year. She will not chase after grand gestures, but will do what she does best: think things through, optimize, and achieve results. And the more consistently she follows this path from January to December, the more clearly she will feel that her happiness is not a coincidence, but a pattern that she will build with her own hands, mind, and character. Libra. When the calendar shows the first days of 2026, Libras will no longer allow themselves to live in whatever will be mode. The balance they have been seeking for years between work and personal life, between the expectations of others and their own desires, between compromise and self-respect, will finally begin to be measured not by pretty words, but by concrete decisions. In this astrological vision, it is the representatives of this sign who will be among the 5 who will be able to turn 2026 into a period of noticeable relief, inner harmony, and very earthly happiness, without pathos, but with tangible results. Libras will always strive for justice and beauty. Their strength lies in their ability to see both sides of any situation, to negotiate, to smooth over conflicts, and to build relationships in a way that is comfortable for everyone. They will be sensitive to people's moods, easily adapt to different audiences, and be able to create a pleasant atmosphere in both their work and personal environments. But it is precisely in this ability to compromise that their fatigue will lie. For years, Libras will put the needs of others above their own, agree when they want to refuse, and remain silent when they need to speak. 2026 will gradually change this balance. They will not turn into harsh egoists, but will finally allow themselves to live not only for others. In January, Libras will begin with an honest reassessment of their environment. They will go through each name and each contact in their head and suddenly feel who among the people around them truly supports them and who is simply taking advantage of their sensitivity. During this period, they will respond more cautiously to requests that usually sound like, "You always help me out." They will say, "I'll think about it," more often, rather than automatically saying, "yes." It is in January that Libras will begin to build their first boundaries, which are still invisible to others. They will limit the time spent on empty conversations, stop agreeing to meetings that leave them feeling exhausted, and cancel their participation in roles where they act as an emotional pharmacy for everyone. This quiet adjustment of their social circle will lay the foundation for a happier year ahead. In February, the focus will shift to work and partnership projects. Libras are naturally capable of teamwork, but they will often find themselves in situations where they are doing more than agreed. In 2026, they will evaluate their own contribution differently. If they previously agreed to work as friends and finish other people's tasks so as not to let them down, in February, they will begin to ask clearer questions. What will the conditions be? What will the scope of responsibility be? What will the reward be? Where there are no answers, they will not be shy about refusing. On the other hand, if they see transparent rules and respect for their role, they will invest twice as much effort. This will create entry points for them into alliances where they will be valued as equals, not as convenient tools. March will bring the topic of decisions to the surface. Those who are used to doubting until the last moment will force themselves to reduce their hesitation during this period. They will realize that every endless "think about it some more" is also a choice that eats away at opportunities. In March, they will introduce a rule of deadlines for internal reflection. For example, they will give themselves a week to respond to an important proposal rather than dragging it out for months. They will begin to analyze options in a more structured way, not only pros and cons, but also, what are the consequences if I leave everything as it is? It is this habit of reaching a specific decision more quickly that will allow Libras in 2026 not to get lost in doubts, but to catch the trains that are really waiting for them. April will highlight the financial side. Libras will often treat money as a resource for beauty, experiences, and pleasant gestures. In the new year, their approach will become more mature. They will begin to plan their expenses without giving up pleasures, but setting priorities more logically. Libras will calculate not only how much they earn, but also what remains after all mandatory payments. In April, they may create their own budgets, dividing their funds into several baskets: necessities, development, leisure, and reserves. They will be more attentive to joint finances in a relationship, not only paying without saying anything, but also openly discussing who is responsible for what, how large purchases are planned, and how responsibilities are distributed. In May, the topic of external image and social presence will come to the fore. Libras will always have a natural sense of style, but in 2026, this will become a tool. They will review their wardrobe social networks, and behavior in public spaces. They will begin to think about how they are perceived by people who could become employers, clients, or partners. If their pages were previously chaotic, in May, they will take on a clearer line, fewer random posts, more content that reflects Libra's interests, expertise, and values. A structured approach will also appear in their appearance. Clothing, hairstyle, and manner of speaking will be adjusted to emphasize confidence rather than hide it. June will focus on learning and broadening horizons. Libras will feel that it is difficult to move to the next level without new knowledge. They will begin to choose programs, trainings, and courses that not only provide a certificate, but also truly change the quality of thinking. This could be deepening professional skills, mastering a related field, learning a foreign language, or developing communication or leadership skills. They will not chase quantity, but will focus on depth. Better one serious course than 10 superficial ones. June will be the month when the foundation will be laid for new activities that Libras have only dreamed of before. In July, the focus will shift to personal life. Those Libras who are in relationships will no longer turn a blind eye to imbalances. If one gives much more than they receive, the issue will come to the surface. They will look for a format where both partners contribute emotionally, domestically, and financially. Where the partner is ready to build a new, honest level of interaction, July will be a period of deepening intimacy, more mature conversations about the future, common goals, plans for housing, children, business, or travel. Where the other party ignores Libra's needs for years, a transition to decisions about a breakup or pause is possible. Not from a position of revenge, but from a position of preserving one's dignity. Those representatives of the sign who are single will have more opportunities to meet people through friends, common interests, studies, creative and professional projects in July. August will add momentum. It will be a month when Libras will be able to feel themselves at the center of events, meetings, proposals, trips, negotiations, new projects. It is important that in 2026, they will no longer react to this as a chaotic flow, but as a field of conscious choice. They will not take on everything, but will select what resonates with their long-term goals. In August, they may receive invitations to collaborate, roles where their people skills and sense of proportion will be critically needed. Team coordination, PR, media, negotiations with partners, brand management, design, consulting, areas where aesthetics and strategy are important. September will be the month when Libras begin to measure change not only emotionally, but also in numbers. They will calculate how much their income has grown, how many projects have been completed, what expenses have been optimized, what debts have been paid off, how much has been invested in training, and how many new useful contacts have been made. This pragmatic approach will not make them cynical, but will allow them to see clearly that their efforts are not in vain. In September, Libras will also think more often about the legal and documentary side of things, agreements, contracts, and official arrangements. They will make sure that everything is transparent, that their rights are protected, and that their responsibilities are clearly defined. October will raise the issue of soft power. Libras will continue to be able to influence through arguments, atmosphere, and example, rather than direct pressure. In 2026, this will take on a new scale. In October, they will learn to conduct difficult conversations constructively about promotions, redistribution of responsibilities, fair compensation, or the division of areas of responsibility. They will speak calmly but firmly, without emotional outbursts, but with clear logic. This month, important agreements are possible that will affect the coming years. New collaborations, job changes, expansion of powers, and synchronization in pairs on key decisions. In November, the theme of inner peace will come to the fore. Libras, like no one else, will feel the fluctuations around them, in the news, in society, in their close circle. It will be easy for them to become infected with anxiety, but this is where they will use their ability to balance. They will begin to create islands of stability for themselves, rituals that give a sense of support, morning walks, time without phones before bed, shared dinners with those they trust, written planning, tracking their own successes. In November, they will learn not to let in unnecessary noise, to reduce the amount of news that does not change anything in their real actions but upsets their nervous system. December will sum up not only achievements for Libras, but also internal transformations. They will notice how they have changed from indecisive people, often torn between yes and no, to those who are able to take a position and defend it without aggression. They will see that they are capable of earning money honestly and ethically, without going against their own values. They will feel that they can love and build relationships without sacrificing themselves completely. They will realize that their yes has become conscious, and their no has become important and necessary. And this will bring a special, very mature feeling of happiness. Not when everyone is fine, and I'll just put up with it, but when I am fine, and so are those with whom I choose to be. On this path, the year will hold dangerous turns for Libras. One of them is the desire to dissolve into other people's problems again. If they return to the old model of, I'll smooth everything over so that no one quarrels, they risk losing their new foundations. The second is the temptation to postpone important conversations. If the habit of replacing direct dialogue with hints, insults, and deafening silence reappears, then old scenarios will begin to seep into new opportunities. The third is an excessive focus on the opinions of others. If Libras once again make career or relationship choices simply because it seems right, rather than because it corresponds to their inner values, their sense of true happiness will fade. To avoid these pitfalls, Libras will practice 3 key habits throughout 2026. The first is to ask themselves a question before any important agreement. Is this decision born out of fear of disappointing someone or out of respect for myself and others? The second is not to drag out conflicts. If something hurts, they will choose to talk about it within a day or two, rather than accumulating dissatisfaction for months. The third is to record their successes. At the end of each month, they can write down what they have managed to change in their work, finances, relationships, and personal well-being. This will reinforce the feeling that they are moving forward and not standing still. In 2026, Libras will gradually move away from the role of the eternal peacemaker, who is always in the middle, and will come to the role of a mature creator of their own reality. Their natural diplomacy will not disappear, but it will cease to be a tool of self-betrayal. It will become a way to build alliances, careers, and personal lives where they themselves feel comfortable. And the more attentive they are to themselves starting in January, the more responsibly they use the opportunities of each subsequent month, the more confident they will feel by the end of the year, among the few signs for whom 2026 will truly become a time of inner balance, honest relationships, and tangible, concrete joy from their own path. Scorpio. For Scorpio, 2026 will be like a closed room in which a bright light will finally be turned on. What has long been hidden under the rug, subconscious fears, tangled financial stories, denied desires, old grudges, and unfinished relationships will begin to manifest themselves very clearly. And it is the representative of this sign who will not run away from this truth, but will use it to radically change their standard of living. In the legends of Edgar Cayce's prophecies, Scorpio is traditionally associated with depth, power, money, crises, and rebirth. And in 2026, this energy will work as an amplifier. Everything they consciously touch will give them a chance for extraordinary personal happiness. Scorpio will never be a superficial person. They will think strategically, sense other people's motives before they say anything, and carefully monitor who is worthy of their attention. Their strengths are inner stability, endurance, the ability to endure what breaks others, a sharp mind, focus on results, and impressive intuition. But on the other side, there will always be danger, suspicion, jealousy, a tendency toward radical all-or-nothing decisions, a need to control both himself and others, and a tendency toward extremes in finances, love, and work. 2026 will gradually shift this explosive mixture from a mode of self-destruction to one of maximum efficiency, if Scorpio agrees to play honestly with itself. The beginning of the year, January, will look like an internal audit. Scorpio will look at all areas, where they sabotage themselves, with whom they continue to communicate only out of habit, which financial obligations no longer make sense, where changes are long overdue. At this time, they will begin to gradually break old ties, not necessarily because of conflicts, but because of cold, clear decisions. They will remove people who feed off their energy, but give nothing in return, end conversations that they have been putting off for years, and close projects that have long become a burden. On the outside, this may look like a series of small completions, but psychologically, January will be the point where he decides that 2026 will not be a repeat of previous years, that there will be no room for outright toxic chaos. February will bring a clearer focus on money and resources. It will become clear where Scorpio spent money to drown out tension and where they truly invested in the future. They will begin to carefully examine their financial flows, bills, debts, subscriptions, payments, and unprofitable obligations. They will review credit histories, negotiate better terms, and refuse expenses that only create the appearance of status. They will cool their enthusiasm for impulsive purchases and, at the same time, increase their interest in long-term savings, gradual income growth, and secure financial decisions without extremes. In February, Scorpios will not just feel the money, but will learn to build a clear, mature system with it. Transparent rules, clear priorities, and balanced steps. March will affect the professional sphere. Scorpios will carefully assess their position at work or in business. They will begin to ask themselves questions such as, what role do I play? That of an executor, a grey cardinal, or an open leader? Who actually benefits most from my work? Does my level of influence correspond to my real capabilities? This month, they will be ready to make tough but well thought out decisions, to ask for a promotion and a raise, to move to a structure where their strategic thinking will be more appreciated, or to prepare the ground for a change of field if their current direction has long since exhausted itself. He will not throw everything away, but he will not cling to positions or roles where he is forced to play a smaller game than he is capable of. In April, the theme of influence and control will become more active. Scorpio will see where he is trying to control everything, but is actually losing his own freedom. This can apply to relationships, work processes, and family matters. They will learn to let go where they have been pushing. They will stop checking their partner's every move, demanding reports from friends, and controlling every little thing in the team. Instead, they will focus on the key levers: systemic decisions, strategy, and rules of the game. This shift will reduce conflict and paranoia, freeing up time and energy. At the same time, in April, They will begin to set strict boundaries where their boundaries have been violated for years. They will not allow anyone to meddle in their finances, manipulate their feelings, or dictate who they communicate with. May will bring the topic of intimacy and trust to the surface. Scorpio is a sign that either opens up completely or keeps its distance, and in 2026, this extreme will begin to even out. In May, he will review his relationships, whether it is a union in which there is mutual support or a field of constant games and tests, where the partner is ready for honesty. Frank conversations about fears, jealousy, common goals, finances, and past wounds are possible. Where the other side only reacts defensively, Scorpio will realize how much energy they are spending on maintaining a connection that has long since lost its meaning. They will test and provoke less, speak more directly, but without unnecessary emotional drama. For those who are ready to work on their relationship, May will be the month that marks the beginning of a new level of intimacy. June will redirect attention to the inner psyche. Scorpio will feel the need to deal not only with external circumstances, but also with their own shadow areas. They may decide to seek therapy, coaching, or deep practices that will help them unpack old traumas, self-destructive scenarios, and the habit of responding with aggression or escape. They will explore where their fear of betrayal comes from, why it is so difficult to trust, and why any loss is perceived as a personal war. June will be a time when Scorpio will not only acknowledge their dark sides, but will begin to transform them into resources. Aggression into the strength to defend boundaries, jealousy into the desire to build better relationships, pain into the motivation to create a more stable reality. In July, new income opportunities will appear on the horizon. Scorpios will see prospects where others see only risks or difficulties. They may embark on projects related to analytics, investments, crisis management, business transformations, security, and working with confidential information. In July, they will begin to test new areas of income, additional services, consulting, support for complex deals, participation in projects that require a tough but fair approach. They will be cautious with money and will not succumb to offers of easy schemes. Where he sees structure, real numbers, and transparent rules, he will be able to act boldly. August will force him to think about the balance between work, power, and body. In the pursuit of control and results, Scorpio easily forgets about physical resources. This month, they will begin to feel that without regular rest, a normal routine, and stress relief, no amount of willpower will get them anywhere. Therefore, August will be a time of reboots, short trips, a change of scenery, time by the water or in the mountains. Conscious breaks from work. They will learn to allow themselves to disconnect from the system without fear that everything will fall apart without them. On the contrary, by taking a step back, they will see where processes can already work without their total intervention and where the structure needs to be adjusted. September will bring the issues of power and long-term strategies back into focus. Scorpio will already have concrete results from the first 8 months: changes in income, renewed relationships, a purified environment, and the first fruits of inner work. Now he will begin to paint a broader picture. September will be a month when he will set longer-term goals for himself, not just for a few months, but for several years. These may be plans for their own business, moving to another level of responsibility, creating a financial cushion, buying a home, expanding their participation in areas where they feel called. They will begin to build a strategy as if playing a long game, taking into account risks, backup options, and possible twists and turns. October will highlight reputation. If, up to this point, Scorpios have allowed themselves to play shady games, promise more than they can deliver, provoke conflicts, and fuel intrigue. This month, the consequences will begin to manifest themselves most clearly. But if in 2026 they use their sharp qualities constructively, keeping their word, clearly fulfilling agreements, being honest even in difficult situations, October will be a period when influential people will begin to perceive them as a strong but reliable player. Recommendations will be made in professional circles, and requests for cooperation with him will appear because it is difficult with him, but the result is guaranteed to be high quality. November will bring all unresolved issues to the fore. It will be a month when loose ends will need to be tied up. Legal issues, family conflicts, uncertain financial situations, relationships that are stuck in a neither together nor apart format. Scorpio will be faced with a choice, either to postpone the conversations again or to finally bring them to a conclusion. They will have the strength to ask tough questions, refuse to settle for half measures, and set clear boundaries. Where there has been hidden manipulation, November will bring it to light. Where they have been left in reserve, Scorpios will be able to close the scenario themselves, without waiting for the other side to make up their mind. This month may be emotionally tense, but it will open the door to a much calmer inner space. December will bring the main change of the year. Scorpio will stop living in an internal war. They will look back on their path in 2026 and notice that they have matured in the best sense of the word. Fewer chaotic leaps, more thoughtful moves. Fewer destructive conflicts, more tough but honest negotiations. Fewer financial extremes, more stable growth. Fewer people who suck up energy. More allies with whom you can implement ambitious plans. In December, Scorpio will allow himself to admit that he will indeed reach a completely different level of power, one that does not require noise, scandals, and demonstrations, but manifests itself through results and inner peace. The dangers on this path will also be noticeable. The biggest one is the temptation to return to the old game of either my truth or war. If Scorpio continues to seek revenge in 2026, holding grudges like treasures, testing loved ones to the point of exhaustion, mocking themselves and others just for the sake of feeling in control, even the best opportunities will begin to fade away. People who could have become partners will walk away, financial doors will close, and health will send signals that the nervous system is on the verge of collapse. The second serious risk is a dangerous tendency toward extremes in money matters. If Scorpio allows themselves to get carried away with radical schemes, get involved in financial stories where the stakes are too high and transparency is low, or invest significant amounts based solely on emotion, they will pay dearly. 2026 will not approve of thoughtless leaps into the unknown. It will be much more beneficial for Scorpio to use their innate ability to see what is hidden, to check contracts, read the fine print, consult with experts, and not transfer control of their resources to those they do not trust internally. The third risk is self-destruction due to excessive demands on oneself. Scorpio is capable of demanding superhuman resources from themselves, ignoring fatigue, and continuing to fight when they need to stop. If in 2026 they still have not learned to care for themselves, not only as a tool, but as a living person, happiness will slip away. Sleep problems, psychosomatic symptoms, emotional breakdowns, outbursts of aggression, or sudden burnout, all of this can negate a significant part of their achievements. To avoid these pitfalls, Scorpios will create new rules of the game for themselves. They will begin to set limits in financial matters and relationships, monitor how much time they spend in conflict and how much in calm work mode, and change their approach to rest. Instead of resorting to destructive ways of relieving tension, they will choose those that truly restore. They will not give up their depth or become a light sign, but they will learn to direct their energy toward construction rather than destruction. For Scorpio, 2026 will be a time when their talent for dealing with crises will finally bring them not only chaos, but also very specific dividends, more stable finances, a stronger position at work, more honest relationships, and inner self-respect. And it is thanks to this ability to enter the dark areas of their life and emerge from them not empty-handed, but with new strength, that they will enter the narrow circle of zodiac signs that people will say, in 2026, they will truly reach their level of happiness, not by chance, but as a natural result of bold, profound, and very conscious decisions. Sagittarius. In 2026, Sagittarius will move as if several new continents are opening up before them, in work, in money, in relationships, in their own worldview. Their inner compass will constantly point to expansion, more freedom, wider choices, bolder decisions. This sign will be among those who will be called lucky throughout the year. Not because of random luck, but because of a combination of courage, foresight, and the ability to say yes to the moment when others are still hesitating. Sagittarius will not be satisfied with little, and 2026 will support them in this endeavor. Their characteristic traits will be accentuated: optimism, enterprise, a thirst for the new, the ability to see meaning where others see only routine. All this will act as a driving force. Sagittarius will willingly take on big tasks without fear of scale. They will seek an environment where they can grow rather than slowly fade away. At the same time, weaknesses will not disappear. A tendency to underestimate details, sometimes promising more than they can deliver. Sudden turns without preparation. Straightforwardness that can hurt others. A tendency to spend in advance based on future income. In 2026, the task will be to learn how to use his fiery nature so that it illuminates the path rather than burning it. January for Sagittarius will be like climbing to an observation deck. They will look closely at where they are now and ask themselves questions not about trifles, but about the vector. Which direction to move in professionally, whether they are satisfied with their current city, country, social circle, and lifestyle. This month, they will begin to set new goals for the year, not just earn more or change something, but specific scenarios. Change the format of their work, bring a project to other markets, add a new specialization, start their own business, or move part of their life to another location. January will be a period when Sagittarius will determine what happiness will mean to them in 2026. Freedom of movement, a certain level of income, time for their favorite activity, deeper relationships, or all of the above. In February, people and contacts will set the tone. Sagittarius will communicate more intensively. They will write to those with whom they have long planned to collaborate, apply for new projects, and look for partners with whom they can implement ideas that have been shelved for a long time. It will be a month of lively acquaintances, useful dialogues, and unexpected connections. Someone will introduce you to the right person. Someone will offer a joint venture. Someone will open the door to a new professional field. In February, Sagittarius will not sit around waiting for invitations, but will go out into the field of opportunities themselves, writing letters, responding to offers, registering for events where active and ambitious people intersect. This will be one of the key reasons for their lucky chances. Where others are limited to thoughts, they will already be in action. March will focus on financial issues, but in a manner unusual for Sagittarius. If earlier they took a relaxed approach to money, perceiving it more as fuel for experience, then in 2026, specifically in March, they will begin to treat it as a resource that needs to be structured. Sagittarius will sort out their income and expenses, see where they are losing money due to impulsiveness, and where they are losing out because they cannot name their real price. They will introduce simple but clear rules. Do not spend everything that comes in. Have a reserve for at least a few months. Do not get involved in dubious financial deals. Do not promise money in advance until it is confirmed. In March, decisions may be made to change the format of remuneration, add a new source of income, and calculate which financial goals are realistic to achieve by the end of the year. In April, the key theme will be work and self-realization. Sagittarius will not tolerate narrow boundaries, pointless controls, and tasks that lead neither to development nor to a sense of significance. This month, they will come closer to understanding the formats in which they work most effectively. For some, this will mean switching to a flexible schedule. For others, negotiating a different position. And for others, starting their own project alongside their main job. The peculiarity of Sagittarius in 2026 will be that they will not just dream of the ideal job, but will take concrete steps, meeting people who already have this kind of lifestyle, test launches, first clients, first products, first services. April will be the month when their inner "I want something different" begins to turn into "I'm already doing something different." May will raise the topic of freedom of movement and space. Sagittarius will begin to keenly feel in which environment their energy unfolds best. This may be a decision to travel more, even within their own country, to test life in different cities, to move to another country for a while, to combine work with new locations. It will be important for them not just to change the picture, but to see where they truly breathe. In May, there may be trips that will become turning points. During a business trip or vacation, they will get an idea, find partners, see other standards of life and work, and understand that they can raise the bar. It is this experience in May that will shape new criteria for happiness. It will not be enough to just work and rest on weekends. They will want something on a different scale. Relationships will be actively manifested in June. Sagittarius will not tolerate emotional boredom. Those around them will either have to move forward together or honestly acknowledge their different paths. For Sagittarians who are in a relationship, June will be a month of frank conversations about plans for the coming years, housing, children, business, moving, lifestyle. They will seek harmony. Are both ready for the changes that are brewing? Where the partner is progressive, the feeling of unity will strengthen, with both looking in the same direction. Where the other side clings to the old comfort zone, tensions may arise. Single representatives of the sign will have a high chance of meeting someone in June with whom they will be united not only by attraction, but also by shared views on the future. July will test Sagittarius's ability to keep up the pace. There will be many events, work tasks, trips, meetings, possible changes in the lives of loved ones that will affect their plans. They will train their ability not to get distracted, to determine where their presence is really needed and where they can refuse or postpone. July will require a mature attitude towards their own time, not to agree to all invitations, not to waste hours on empty discussions, not to ponder idly. This month will show whether Sagittarius can control his fire or just burn. He will learn to plan his days so that they include work blocks, communication, movement, pauses, and space for spontaneity, but within limits that do not destroy the main trajectory. August will make the fruits of his courage particularly noticeable. If Sagittarius has been actively seeking new contacts since the beginning of the year, and has not been afraid to take steps in his career and finances, then in August, some of his plans will begin to materialize. There may be offers that they thought about back in January, contract confirmations, negotiation results, and launches of products or projects that they have been working on in previous months. The important thing is to distribute this wave correctly. Sagittarius will choose which opportunities to accept and which to reject in order not to overload themselves. August will be a litmus test of their ability to distinguish between truly mine and just interesting. September will reveal the theme of learning and intellectual growth on a different level. If in June, Sagittarius will focus on practical knowledge, then in the fall they will gravitate towards strategic structures. This could be more in-depth learning in their chosen field, mentoring from someone who already lives in a way that appeals to them, or participation in programs that discuss not minor skills, but approaches to life, business, investment, and leadership. September will encourage them to go beyond "I'm just doing my job well" to "I'm forming my own philosophy of success." This, in turn, will affect their sense of happiness. It will increasingly be linked not only to material indicators, but also to how much their life corresponds to their values. October will be a month in which Sagittarius will look at his risks differently. He will still be someone who is ready to try new things, but he will begin to learn to calculate the consequences more deeply. This will not mean a loss of courage, but rather the opposite. He will allow himself to take bigger steps, but with backup plans. In October, decisions regarding long-term financial steps are possible. Savings, changes in the structure of expenses, distribution of income between different areas, participation in large projects. It is important here that they avoid excitement for the sake of excitement. Their actions will be based more on analysis and consultation, and not just on feelings. This approach will significantly increase the chances of avoiding painful mistakes. In November, the topic of happiness will take on a very personal dimension for Sagittarius. They will listen more closely to themselves, how satisfied they are with how their everyday life looks, how much freshness there is in it, how much internal exhaustion. If they have been honest with themselves throughout the year in terms of their career, finances, and relationships, November will bring a sense of inner support. If they are still playing by the old rules, for example, agreeing to relationships out of inertia or dragging themselves through work that is not close to their goals, it will become clear in November that this cannot continue. He will have a chance to take the final steps, to finish what has long outgrown him and free up space for better options. December 2026 will not look like a final sprint for Sagittarius, but rather a test of how consistent his course has become. They will look back and notice. Where they dreamed in January, they were already acting in the summer. Where they wrote their first messages to potential partners in February, they were already seeing the results of their joint work in the fall. Where they first sat down to calculate their finances in March, they already had a clearer understanding of their capabilities closer to winter. December will bring a special kind of satisfaction, the feeling that he did not just react to the year, but created it. His happiness will have the taste of freedom with support. He will know that he is capable of changing his location, work format, and circle of communication. And at the same time, he will have an inner core that does not depend on external circumstances. There will also be threats along the way. The first is excessive self-confidence. If Sagittarius decides in 2026 that it is relatively easy for them to obtain opportunities, they will limit themselves only to creative chaos without discipline, which will affect their results at a certain stage. Opportunities will disappear if they start being late all the time, not keeping their promises, taking on projects, and abandoning them halfway through. The second danger is escaping responsibility through constant change. If they use their desire for freedom as an excuse to constantly jump from job to job, relationship to relationship, city to city, without completing a single cycle, their satisfaction will be superficial. Lots of impressions, but little depth. The third danger is financial gambling. If Sagittarius, inspired by initial successes, begins to invest significant funds in risky schemes, blindly trusts acquaintances who promise quick profits, or uses loans for impulsive purchases, the end of the year may bring unexpected tension. It will be critically important for them to remember that luck favors the bold, but it supports those who combine boldness with sound judgment much more strongly. To secure his status as one of the luckiest signs of 2026, Sagittarius will build his own coordinate system. He will train his strategic thinking without losing his lightness, learn to make big decisions without devaluing small steps, and teach himself to enjoy the process, not just the final results. They will allow themselves to set high standards in work and relationships, but will not demand unattainable perfection from themselves. And importantly, they will not agree to live below the level of inner truth that they will already feel within themselves during the year. As a result, Sagittarius will go through 2026 not as a guest in their own life, but as a traveler holding a map and a steering wheel at the same time. They will have the ability to see beyond the horizon, act before others, and stay ahead of time and circumstances. And the more actively they use this gift, the more often they will catch moments when they can say to themselves, yes, this is the life they once wanted, lively, dynamic, meaningful, and free, with a warm feeling that their path is very dignified. Capricorn. Capricorn will finally enter a year in which its consistency, endurance, and ability to work for the long haul will begin to yield such noticeable results that even the most skeptical people around will admit that this strategy is the winning one. Where his caution was previously considered boring and his discipline unnecessary, throughout 2026, all of this will become the basis for stability, growth, and very down-to-earth, tangible happiness. Representatives of this sign will not seek spectacular effects, but will gradually accumulate what others can only dream of. A strong position at work, clear finances, confidence in the future, and inner strength regardless of external noise. Their natural traits will work to their fullest. Pragmatism, strategic thinking, respect for time, willingness to take responsibility, and the ability to stay the course even when quick results are not visible. At the same time, his weaknesses will also make themselves felt. A tendency toward pessimism, harshness toward himself and others, sometimes excessive frugality in matters of joy, unwillingness to ask for help, a habit of doing everything himself, and closed-mindedness in matters of emotion. 2026 will offer him an option where strength and gentleness will learn to coexist. He will continue to build, but will stop doing so solely through tension. In January, Capricorn will act as the CEO of his own life. He will not rush into New Year's resolutions, but instead will paint a realistic picture of where he is now, his income level, position in his profession, health, debts, obligations, and resources. This month, they will analyze which goals from previous years they have managed to achieve and which have been put on hold due to external circumstances or their own excuses. Next, they will formulate 3 or 4 main goals for the year. For example, reaching a new level of income, securing housing, improving health, and balancing work and personal life. January will be the starting point when Capricorn will determine not only the desired outcome, but also the specific stages, by which month he will complete one block, by which another. February will prompt conversations about career. Capricorns will begin to formulate more clearly how much work they can realistically handle, how much they will agree to be paid, and what tasks will correspond to their status. If they work as a hired specialist, February will be a month when they prepare the ground for negotiations. They will collect facts about their results, weigh the responsibilities they perform above and beyond the norm, and compare their position with the market. If they have their own business, they will begin to calculate which areas are most profitable and which are time-consuming and do not bring proportional profits. In February, Capricorns will not act emotionally. They will prepare the basis for decisions that they will make a little later, but it is then that they will determine what is really profitable for them to take on and what is not. March will make money the central theme. Capricorn will approach finances as a system. They will form an account structure, review expenses, optimize payments, and close small but exhausting holes in the budget. Clear markers will appear. This amount will go into reserves each month. This one will go toward development. This one will go toward essential needs. And this one will go toward pleasures that they have long postponed. Capricorns will allow themselves pleasant things, but only after they are sure that their foundation is secure. In March, they may make decisions about new savings formats, change banks or financial instruments, and choose more profitable solutions instead of the inert, "It's always been this way." At the same time, they will not buy anything on impulse. Everything will be calculated, weighed, and confirmed by numbers. In April, the work sphere will pick up speed again, but in a different light. Capricorn, who was preparing for negotiations in February, will take action during this period. He will approach management with proposals to change his status, review his salary, and redistribute functions. They will argue, not ask. They will show figures, results, and the impact they have. If the answer is vague or evasive, Capricorns will begin to actively seek alternatives. They will review job vacancies, contact recruiters, and talk to people who can offer other opportunities. For entrepreneurs, April will be a time of optimization, closing unprofitable areas, reformatting teams, reviewing terms of cooperation with partners. May will bring up the topic of endurance and health. Capricorn will realize that without stable physical resources, no plans will work. This month, they will visit doctors they have been putting off for a long time, get tested, undergo examinations, and adjust their diet. They will perceive this not as panic, but as logical prevention. There will be more attention to sleep patterns, exercise, and activities that actually improve their condition, rather than just ticking boxes. Capricorn will introduce clear rules, not to work to the point of complete exhaustion, not to sit up at night working on tasks that can wait, and not to ignore the body's signals. May will be the month when he first feels his body rewarding his attentive attitude with increased productivity and lower stress levels. June will bring relationships and family issues to the forefront. Capricorn does not usually play around with intimacy. If they commit, it is for the long term. During this month, they will review how comfortable and honest their life is in its current format. Where unspoken grievances have been held in the couple for years, it will be time to talk about them, without hysterics, but with specifics. They will seek agreements on budget, household, roles, and plans for the future. If their partner shows a willingness to get involved, Capricorn will invest twice as much. Joint decisions about housing, large purchases, joint projects, and leisure. If the other party evades, shifts everything onto them, and ignores conversations, in June, Capricorn will realize whether they are ready to continue carrying everything on their own. In some cases, this will lead to decisions about distancing or breaking up. But again, this will be due to cold analysis, not an emotional outburst. July will shift the focus to personal ambitions. Capricorn will begin to feel that they have done enough because they have to, and that the time has come to do more because that is what they want. During this period, they will think about their own projects that they have long postponed: a second education, a new specialization, a small business, investing in something of their own. There will be a desire to move away from a format where they only support other people's structures and start building their own. July will bring them ideas and contacts that will show that these are not fantasies, but entirely realistic options. They will analyze markets, read other people's case studies, and learn from others' mistakes so as not to repeat them. August will increase the workload, but at the same time open up opportunities for a leap forward. Large projects may appear at work that will require concentration and managerial skills. For entrepreneurs, this will be a time to scale up, take on more clients, enter new regions, update a product or service. This month, Capricorns will show themselves to be people who can be trusted with complex and responsible tasks, which is why they will be called upon more often. It will be important not to overload themselves. If they start agreeing to everything, they risk reaching their limit. If they manage to choose 3 or 4 priorities and work on them as efficiently as possible, August will be one of the most productive periods of the year. September will focus on long-term projects. Capricorns will think about housing, land, and large material assets. These will not necessarily be immediate purchases, but it is at this time that they will make preliminary calculations: how much they need to earn and save to achieve these goals, what tools to use for this, and what time frame is realistic. They may consult with financial advisors and lawyers, study the terms and conditions of various banks, and analyze the experiences of acquaintances. September will be a month for laying the foundation for large, well-thought-out purchases. Not now, but over the next few years. And the very fact that there will be a clear plan will already give a sense of confidence and peace of mind. October will emphasize the theme of status and recognition. Capricorns will begin to notice how they are perceived in their professional environment, whether their opinion is taken into account, whether they are invited to important discussions, whether they are seen as experts and not just the ones who do all the work. This month, they will work on their personal brand, updating profiles, talking about their achievements, agreeing to public appearances, participating in industry events, and publishing professional materials. October will give him a chance to cement his image as a specialist who is called upon when quality and longevity are needed, rather than anything will do. At the same time, he will pay more attention to his reputation. He will fulfill his promises, will not take on anything he is not sure about, and will not agree to questionable deals. November will affect his inner world. Capricorns do not usually delve into their emotions, but at the end of the year, there will be a need to analyze what is happening, not only externally, but also internally. They will begin to notice when they work with pleasure and when they work out of pure duty, when they feel calm around people and when they feel constant tension. What exactly money and position bring? Freedom or burden? November will show them where they've gone too far with self-control and turned their life into a never-ending project with no room for spontaneous joy. If they're ready, they'll start adding small but regular sources of pleasure to their schedule. Hobbies, get-togethers, trips, creative stuff that's not about being useful but nourishing. December will bring all the lines of the year together. Capricorn will look back on the path they have traveled and see not chaotic events, but a logical sequence. In January, setting goals; in March, specifying finances; in April, changing roles at work; in May, taking care of health; in summer, talking about relationships and taking the first steps towards their own projects; in autumn, consolidating status and planning large assets. They will note how their resilience has grown, how much more confidently they have spoken about their conditions, how the attitude of those around them has changed, and how their financial flow has evened out. December will bring a special feeling. They have not just endured the year, but have qualitatively raised their bar. Capricorn's path during this period will not be cloudless. Certain risks, if ignored, can seriously spoil the picture. One of them is being too hard on yourself. If you demand perfection in every step, not allowing yourself any mistakes, your nervous system will not be able to cope. Overwork, chronic fatigue, and the feeling that even great achievements bring no joy can become an undesirable backdrop. The second is emotional closedness. If Capricorn refuses to talk about what really bothers them, hides problems inside, and does not trust even those who are really close to them, this will gradually destroy relationships and create the impression that they are alone against everyone. The third risk is excessive control in everything. If they do not learn to delegate, to trust others with some of their tasks, to allow themselves to sometimes do good enough rather than perfectly as they imagine, the amount of work will exceed any human capacity. Then, instead of a feeling of strength, there will be a feeling of being trapped, as if everything depends only on him, and it is impossible to take a step aside. To avoid this, Capricorn will gradually learn in 2026 to separate the key things that must be under his complete control from the secondary ones that can be delegated or simplified. If they persistently apply their rational approach throughout the year, but allow themselves to be more human, their chances of achieving a special state of happiness will be very high. They will see concrete progress in money, work, and status, feel less chaos and more control, and allow themselves to plan for the future with confidence rather than anxiety. And it is this combination of cold calculation and inner peace that will make Capricorn one of the few for whom 2026 will be a year when everything works: career, financial foundation, personal agreements with people and with themselves. Aquarius. As soon as the first days of the new year pass, the rhythm of Aquarius's life will begin to change noticeably. The usual framework will seem too narrow, and all half-abandoned ideas, experiments, and dreams of a different reality will gradually come to the fore. What they have long considered too unconventional will begin to be perceived as a key resource in 2026. It is this ability to think differently, break patterns, see opportunities where others see problems, that will push Aquarius to be among the few signs for whom this year will be truly happy, due to systemic changes, not random gifts. Aquarius will always have a mixture of rationality and rebelliousness. On the one hand, they will think logically and love numbers, facts, technology, and analysis. On the other hand, they will not tolerate stupid rules, authoritarianism, and senseless restrictions. Their strength lies in their ability to see ahead, sense trends, and read the mood of society, the collective, and the company. They will often be the first to notice where the wind of change is blowing and will build their trajectories there. At the same time, there are weaknesses, emotional detachment, a tendency to abruptly cut people off when bored, chaos in everyday life, mood swings, inconsistency in implementing ideas. They get excited, start something, and then abandon it. In 2026, this whole set of qualities will work as a powerful tool if Aquarius manages to add structure without betraying their freedom. January will pose the question, not what do I want to change, but how do I want to see my life as a whole? Aquarius will look at work, relationships, finances, place of residence, daily schedule, and make honest diagnoses, where he lives on autopilot and where he truly feels inspired. During this time, they will conduct a kind of review. They will stop clinging to activities that kill their interest, to contacts that are based solely on habit, and to lifestyles that make them feel confined. January will not require any drastic changes, but it is then that Aquarius will set basic guidelines for the year. More freedom at work, clearer financial rules, healthier relationships, and an environment that does not hinder their development. February will highlight the sphere of communication and collectives. Aquarius will be particularly keenly aware of the environments in which they are growing and those in which they are stagnating. They will take a closer look at the team they work with, their friends, and their professional communities. Where toxic control, gossip, and petty manipulation prevail, they will feel an inner rejection and begin to distance themselves. Where there is room for ideas, partnership, humor, and mutual support, they will become more involved. In February, Aquarius will take the first steps toward replacing exhausting contacts with lively ones, joining new professional chats, expanding their circle of acquaintances, and connecting with like-minded people. This will be one of the main triggers of happiness throughout the year. It is the people they meet who will begin to open unexpected doors for them. March will bring the topic of money to the fore, but in Aquarius's style, not just earn more, but rebuild the financial model. He will look at what sources of income he has, which of them tie him to a place and a strict schedule, and which can be more flexible: remote work, projects, freelancing, his own online products, consulting, IT areas, creative digital formats. March will provoke Aquarius to go beyond a single salary. They will analyze what they already have: knowledge, skills, contacts, experience, and how to translate all this into new formats of earning. At the same time, they will not get involved in risky schemes or chase easy money. Their intellectual honesty will push them in the direction of real, albeit gradual, steps. In April, the topic of professional role will come to the fore. Aquarius will begin to clearly feel whether their current position corresponds to their inner level. Where mechanical execution is required of them, they will be bored. Where they are given the opportunity to influence processes, propose changes, and test new approaches, they will flourish. This will be a month when they can offer management unconventional solutions, initiate automation, optimization, and new formats for services or products. Some of these ideas will receive support, while others will meet with resistance. And it is the reaction of management or partners that will be the litmus test. Is it worth staying because there is room for growth, or is it time to prepare to move on to other structures? May will bring personal freedom to the surface. Aquarius will feel how much their schedule and lifestyle correspond to what they need for a normal psychological state. If they have lived for years according to the principle of Vatso. First, duties, then maybe someday me. An internal protest will arise in May. They will begin to reclaim time for themselves, for their own projects, creativity, learning, technologies that interest them, travel, and experiments. This will not mean running away from responsibility. Rather, it will be about creating space in their life where they are not a function, but a living person with unique interests. June will bring changes in the sphere of learning and intellectual development. Aquarius will be drawn to new knowledge, and this will not be superficial curiosity, but a conscious investment. They will choose courses, programs, and mentorships related to future professions, digital tools, innovation, psychology, and communications. Some Aquarians will delve deeper into technical specialties, while others will move toward the humanities, but with a focus on new market formats. The main thing is that they will stop perceiving knowledge as something that will be useful someday. What they learn in June will immediately be integrated into their work, projects, and even hobbies. July will highlight the topic of relationships, not only romantic ones, but also friendships, partnerships, and work relationships. Aquarius will want to understand which of the people around them truly accept them for who they are, with all their colourful, sometimes strange nature, and who is constantly trying to remake them. Where their freedom is respected, they will open up more, share ideas, plan joint activities, trips, and projects. Where they are criticised for being different, they will begin to distance themselves. For Aquarians in a relationship, this month will be a time for serious conversations about the future, about living together, about money, about which boundaries suit both partners and which do not. They will not raise their voice, but they will not agree to models where they are devalued. August will be particularly eventful. This may be a period when trips, important meetings, work deadlines, and family situations that require their attention will coincide. Aquarius will work at a fast pace, but it will be important not to lose the ability to choose. He will learn to give up the unnecessary, not to get distracted by trifles, and not to try to be everywhere at once. He will have to practice prioritizing, deciding what moves him toward his goals for the year and what only takes away resources. August will show how well they have learned to manage their energy rather than giving it away to everyone who asks for something. September will return to the topic of long-term plans. Aquarius, who by this point will have already tried new formats of work, education, and interaction with people, will be ready to look at the horizon beyond a few months. They will start thinking in terms of 2 to 5 years, where they want to live, what field they want to work in, what amount of money they consider comfortable, how they want to balance online and offline, work and personal life. They will prescribe not only numbers for themselves, but also quality of life. How much time they want to have for themselves, how much for their loved ones, how much for development. September will be the month when dreams of someday begin to take shape in plans to do this so that in a few years I will be there. In October, reputation will come to the fore, both in real life and in the digital world. Aquarius will take a close look at the mark they leave on social media, professional platforms, and in teams. They will start cleaning up and updating their profiles, adding information about their skills, case studies, projects, and results. In the real world, they will also be more careful with their words, not promising what they are not ready to deliver, speaking openly about deadlines and opportunities, and taking a responsible approach to joint tasks. October will bring him the first fruits of this strategy. Someone will approach him with a proposal for cooperation, referring to his public image. Someone will recommend him as a person who keeps up the standard. November will focus on their inner state. With all the changes of the year, Aquarius may not immediately notice how much they have changed inside. This month, they will slow down and ask themselves, have they become less anxious? Do they feel more interested in life? Have they lost the ability to enjoy simple things? If they are still living in a state of constant tension, for example, in a relationship that is based on conflict, or in a job where every day is like a small war, November will force them to take a sober look at this. They will begin to ask themselves, what can I change to make my life calmer, not just more interesting? December in this story will not look like a finish line, but like a point from which a new level of self-understanding opens up. Aquarius will see that over the course of the year, the space around him has been significantly renewed. A different circle of people, a different organization of money, new formats of work, a different experience of relationships with himself and his surroundings. They will feel that they are living less as usual and more as it suits them. Their happiness will no longer be reduced to isolated flashes of brilliance, but will become a basic background. There will be room for freedom, reasonable risks, creativity, technology, and people with whom they can be open. At the same time, the year will require attention to risks. One of them is escaping into chaos. If Aquarius, inspired by freedom, begins to break all commitments without a plan, succumbing to the desire to burn bridges wherever it is boring, they will risk being left without support. Structure is necessary in certain areas of life. Legal issues, basic finances, obligations to loved ones. The second risk is emotional coldness. If, in defending their independence, they close themselves off from those who are sincere towards them, ironize feelings, and avoid depth in relationships, they will gain freedom without closeness, and this is unlikely to feel like true happiness. The third trap is information overload. Aquarius, as a sign that loves news, trends, and technology, can get caught up in an endless stream of feeds, channels, videos, and chats. If in 2026 he does not limit the noise, his brain will simply get tired, his concentration will drop, and his sense of meaning will blur. Therefore, it will be vitally important for them to develop information hygiene, limit the number of sources, unsubscribe from the unnecessary, and keep only what really develops or inspires them. For the year to truly be a happy one, Aquarius will build their own coordinate system, where freedom does not destroy but expands, where technology does not replace real people but helps them interact better, where money does not become a cult but gives them the freedom to choose, where relationships do not turn into a cage but remain a space of mutual respect. They will use their unique ability to see tomorrow before others do, so that today they can take steps that will raise them to another level of quality of life. And the more attentively Aquarius treats each month, from January's review to December's realization, the stronger they will feel that 2026 will not just fly by, but will become the year when they finally begin to live in the format that they have long carried within themselves as ideal, but only now dare to bring to life. Pisces for Pisces, 2026 will not be a calm surface where you can quietly drift with the current. The water beneath them will change direction. Familiar patterns will recede, and long-delayed talents, unspoken needs, and dreams that Pisces have put off for years will come to the surface. It is during this period that they will have the opportunity to stop being outside observers of their own lives and gradually move into the position of a person who controls how their days, relationships, money, and inner state will look. Pisces will always be distinguished by their special sensitivity. They will pick up on nuances in moods, instantly sense insincerity, and react sensitively to injustice, the pain of others, beauty, music, and art. Their strength lies in their ability to empathize, in the depth of their intuition, in their ability to see what others do not notice, nuances, subtext, potential. However, this is also where their weaknesses will lie. A tendency to take on other people's burdens, to live someone else's life, to confuse compassion with self-sacrifice, to escape from tension into fantasy, procrastination, chaos in finances and routine. The year 2026 will push them toward a different quality. They will remain empathetic and dreamy, but they will learn to protect themselves, structure reality, and not dissolve into other people's stories. In January, Pisces will begin to treat their space differently, both external and internal. They will feel tired of imposed roles and scenarios that have long ceased to be appropriate. At this time, a natural desire to put everything in its place will appear, to clean up the room, rearrange the furniture, give away unnecessary things, close silent chats, unsubscribe from unnecessary information sources, and limit contact with those who only bring drama. At the same time, Pisces will begin to honestly formulate for themselves what really nourishes them and what drains them. In January, their first small decisions, to go to bed earlier, not to answer calls when they don't have the energy, not to automatically agree to help out, will already become the foundation for greater happiness. February will push them toward the topics of money and self-respect. Pisces will suddenly see how often they agreed to work for the idea, help without pay, take on additional tasks because there was no one else, and agree to a rate that did not match their skills. This month, they will begin to gradually change their approach. First, they will understand their real value in the market. They will compare salaries and rates, review job openings, and assess how much the tasks they perform are worth. Second, they will try to talk about money directly, ask for fair pay, not be shy about reviewing conditions, and not automatically agree to, "We are having a hard time right now. Be patient." February's conversations may seem exciting, but they will set a new format. Pisces will not only sympathize with others, but also take care of themselves. March will open the door to professional changes. Pisces will begin to look more closely at what they really want to do. Some representatives of the sign will feel drawn to areas where empathy and depth are important: psychology, education, art, music, support professions, working with children, animals, and social projects. Others will realize that their analytical and creative abilities are well suited to marketing, design, content, SMM, creative industries, brand management, and video production. March will be a period when they begin to gather information: what courses to take, what portfolios to build, how to turn a hobby into a professional activity, how to change direction without a sharp drop in income. It is important that Pisces will not give up everything at once. They will seek a compromise between stability and novelty. For example, they will explore a new field in parallel with their main job. April will help them see where emotions drive their choices. Pisces will realize that they often agreed to unfavorable terms simply because they felt sorry for the other person or were afraid of offending them. This month, they will practice a new model, a short pause before responding. When asked for a favor, participation, or additional work as a friend, Pisces will start giving themselves time, not responding immediately, but returning to the topic when it becomes clear whether they have the resources. This will be the first real step toward healthy boundaries. Also, in April, they will begin to reduce emotional swings. They will immerse themselves less in other people's problems to the point of losing sleep, and will be more supportive in order to conserve their own energy. May will bring relationship issues to the surface. For Pisces, this will always be a painful and at the same time crucial topic, because it is through their connections with people that they most often either find happiness or lose themselves. During this period, Pisces will take a more sober look at their relationships. Where a partner has built a relationship on their self-sacrifice for years, the question will arise: are they ready to continue living in a way that always puts their needs second? Where there is mutuality in the couple, May will bring more depth. Pisces will dare to voice their fears, desires, and plans, and will talk about how they want to see their future together and what domestic and financial arrangements are acceptable to them. Single Pisces will have a high chance of meeting someone in May with whom they will be united not only by emotions, but also by similar values, a desire for development, gentleness, and honesty. June will shift the focus to health and the body. Pisces, as a sign that easily forgets about themselves for the sake of others, will begin to notice how much their condition depends on their lifestyle. Frequent headaches, sleep disturbances, digestive problems, and anxiety will all become signals that they will no longer ignore. In June, there will be a greater willingness to make small but consistent changes. Morning walks, light physical activity, simple exercises for the back and neck, active weekends instead of endless scrolling on the phone. There will also be a desire to reduce toxins, less alcohol to relieve tension, less stress eating, less heavy food at night. Pisces will begin to choose what makes them feel lighter and clearer, not just what gives them short-term comfort. July will focus on creativity and self-expression. Many Pisces will accumulate ideas to write a book or blog, start a page with drawings, launch a music project, take photos, shoot videos, create their own brand of accessories, decor, clothing, online courses, or provide consultations. This month, they will feel an inner urge to finally stop being shy and go out into the world. July will push them toward their first publications, first clients, and first public appearances. It will be important for Pisces not to demand perfection from themselves. This period will create conditions where liveliness and sincerity, rather than flawless form, will begin to attract people to them. August will combine creative energy with practicality. Pisces will begin to think about how their talents can bring not only pleasure, but also income. They will form simple but clear proposals: how much their work costs, what exactly they can offer, what formats are available, consultations, individual products, turnkey projects, trainings, online classes. They will learn to issue invoices, conclude contracts, set deadlines, and plan their workload. August will show that sensitivity and creativity can be valuable in the material world if you are not afraid to monetize them. September will focus on learning and consistency. Pisces will feel what knowledge they need to move to the next level. These may be courses in marketing for creative professionals, time management training, financial literacy, deepening technical skills, programs, tools, promotion platforms, and communication psychology. September will be the month when Pisces realize that their intuition is a huge plus, but without a basic structure and skills, it does not work to its full potential. Therefore, they will begin to supplement their natural sensitivity with specific tools. In October, the focus will be on reputation. Pisces will begin to notice that their words and actions are being scrutinized more closely. If they could previously afford to delay projects, forget promises, and avoid difficult conversations, this month such habits will begin to have noticeable consequences. At the same time, those who learn to be more consistent will notice a change in the attitude of those around them. October will empower those Pisces who know how to keep their word, speak honestly about their capabilities, and not promise what they are not ready to do. In the professional environment, they will increasingly be perceived as people with whom it is pleasant and effective to work, and not just as the life of the party or the person who understands everyone. November will touch on deeper themes, meaning, self-confidence, and trust in life. Pisces will think about whether they are following a path that truly resonates with them. If they have taken small but systematic steps throughout the year, learning to say no, structuring their finances, trying new ways of working, and beginning to express their creativity. November will bring a feeling that the inner fog is lifting. If they continued to escape into illusions, live other people's dramas, and not take responsibility for their own decisions. It is in November that the feeling of emptiness will become particularly acute. This will encourage them to finally stop and ask themselves honestly, what am I willing to change right now to stop being a passenger in my own life? December will show how far Pisces have come. They will be able to soberly assess whether they have learned to take better care of themselves, stopped giving away their last reserves of energy, sorted out their financial chaos, added more creativity to their lives, become more honest in their relationships, and built healthier boundaries. For many Pisces who have lived responsibly throughout the year, this will be a period of quiet but very deep satisfaction with themselves. They will feel that they no longer live only for the expectations of others, that they have a right to their desires, that they can earn money doing what they like, and that they are not obliged to constantly save others at the expense of their own resources. Throughout 2026, Pisces will encounter dangerous forks in the road. The first risk is returning to the role of victim. If they continue to think that nothing depends on them, shifting responsibility to circumstances, partners, the state, or the past, then their sensitivity will turn into powerlessness. The second risk is escaping into illusions. Instead of solving specific problems, looking for a new job, negotiating money, consulting specialists, learning, Pisces may once again choose nighttime TV series, endless social media, codependent relationships, and fantasies about a magical tomorrow. The third risk is toxic relationships. If Pisces continue to cling to people who humiliate, use, and manipulate their feelings of guilt, their potential will be blocked. Importantly, 2026 will give them clues. Tension in the body when in contact with such people, exhaustion after conversations, the feeling that they are not being heard. And here, the main task will be the ability not to justify other people's behavior, but to protect their boundaries, even if it means distancing themselves or breaking up. To make the most of the year's opportunities, Pisces will begin to implement simple but effective steps. They will create a minimal financial plan for themselves, even if the amounts are small now. They will establish several unbreakable rules regarding sleep, nutrition, and information noise. They will determine a list of activities that fulfill them and will regularly return to them, even when it is difficult. They will say yes more often to opportunities that align with their values and no to those that feel like exploitation. They will begin to record their small successes more often: a completed task, refusing a toxic conversation, first clients, a new skill, an honest conversation. In 2026, Pisces will have the chance to reach a whole new level of happiness, not loud and ostentatious, but deep, quiet, and lasting. They will be able to combine their unique ability to feel with the ability to build concrete results, the ability to dream with the ability to act, the desire to help with respect for their own limits. And the more consistently they move in this direction from January to December, the clearer they will feel. This year will be the period when their inner depth will cease to be a burden and become the main resource that will open the door to very earthly, real, and lasting happiness.